Okay, so it is 4:13 p.m. on May 12th, 2017, and I am calling this meeting to order. Next on the agenda is call to the audience. If anyone from the audience would like to say anything,
Hi.
you're welcome to do so.
I'm just here.
Hey, my name is Aman, and I'm from Optical Sciences Department. I'm going to be assembly chair.
You're not the call to the audience, just up
I get it, but there is somebody there.
Okay, so next is oath of office. So I believe Dustin
All right,
is
I can
going
do
to.
that. Yeah, so I guess we'll all stand again, that you guys did the other day. All right, and you guys can repeat after me. I state your name.
Mary Timont,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution,
that I will support the Constitution,
bylaws, and elections code
bylaws, and election codes
of the Graduate Professional Student Council,
of the Graduate Professional Student Council,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office of, name your position,
social chair
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so I do affirm,
so I do affirm,
or so help me.
or so help me God.
That's it.
All right, very nicely done. So next, we are to introductions. I believe everyone has probably introduced themselves, but if you could just go over it again so everyone's clear, they're not in the post-glow of their election victory. And however much you want to tell us, however little you want to tell us, but please tell us your name, your role, perhaps what you're studying here, anything you'd like to add. You want to start?
Sure. My name is Marie Timont. I'm the social chair for GPSC. I am an art history PhD student. I think that's it.
Okay, my name is Becca. I'm the secretary, and I'm a PhD student in the Department of German Studies.
I'm Andras Thiagaraj Perumal. You can just call me Anand. I'm the MIS grad student and the executive Java student.
I think I already introduced myself in public. So you can call me Aman.
Aman?
Yeah.
All right, I'm Dustin. I'm the administrative vice president. I'm a PhD student in biomedical engineering.
I am Jessica Baxter. I'm the president, and I am studying water society and policy. That was short and sweet. I thought you all were going to tell us some interesting tidbits about your life. We'll get to that next.
Okay.
Next is the executive board orientation. This is just kind of an informal overview. I emailed some things. Dustin, do you have any?
Well, I made a document, but that's more for GC, because I figured that your email and everybody here is going to read the list of duties, and they all got the manuals. So I thought I was going to do the document instead of a formal orientation.
Okay. So has everybody read the emails? I know I sent a bunch of emails, and I kind of apologize for that, but that's also kind of
What it is.
what it is. If you haven't read it, I try not to load up a bunch of stuff just for the sake of loading it up. So if you haven't got through all of it, please try to get up to speed with that. And then if there are any questions about any of the responsibilities for executive board, there are some very specific guidelines about how often the executive board meets. So we will meet one time in May, June, and July, and then August we will start doing every 2 weeks. So at that point, and I'm kind of jumping to the next thing with the schedule, but we're not technically there yet. I'd like to set a regular, like, night that we do that. For tonight, for the scheduling, I'd like to just schedule the summer meetings, and then we can, at a future time, in the very near future, we can talk about what it'll be for the full semester, but I'd like to do those at least now. One thought that I had that I will just throw out there is, last year, they would meet on Monday nights, and so like every other week basically was executive board, and then the following week was general counsel. So every Monday night you would be here, or there. But another thing we could consider is to do the executive board, at least one of them, if not both of them, before the general counsel meeting. So it'd be a longer meeting, obviously, if we were going to pair both of them, but you wouldn't be responsible for coming every single week. So consider that going forward. For the long-term schedule, we can miss one executive board meeting per semester, and you can Skype in or Zoom in or whatever we decide is the best way for one meeting. And then beyond that, technically your stipend can be docked or whatnot, which I really hope that we can work together as a team and that everybody can contribute, and if you can't be here, that you can communicate that, and that we all can rest easy knowing that everybody's pulling their weight, and we don't get into the nitpicking of docking stipends if people are doing their job and doing a good job but happen to be, you know, at a conference or doing other things for their student life. Because you will hear this said a lot, hopefully, we are all students first, and your studentship should come first, and I never want you to feel torn about that. So, but those things are in our governing docs, and so those are the rules that we have to play with, at least until we change them. So that's something to consider as well if you think that the criteria are not realistic or should be altered. Take notes and then get involved in improving them, because the governing docs are far from perfect, and there are several places where they contradict one another, and that was part of the reason why the last council spent so much time debating things, is because it depends on which part you look at, and then what breaks the tie, how, you know, if you get docked, how much do you get docked? It's not super clear on a lot of things. So if there are ways that we can improve that, not only for our own understanding and functioning, but then also going forward, keep that in mind for those things that I set or that I sent out. I have looked over the manuals that you all received, but I did not go through them in as much detail as I was hoping to by now. Does everybody feel like their manual provides enough direction for them to at least get going in their roles? Okay, Dustin, yours
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, I've gone through all the manuals, so I think that they're okay.
Okay.
All of them. I think I've spoken enough with Jasmine that I kind of know what's going on.
Okay, and if you have questions, things come up, please reach out and ask. Because I mean, again, there's some things that just aren't clear, and so we can try to come together and get that information. Okay, so I will go to the next thing unless anybody wants to add to that.
There's the thing, as an assembly chair, do I have to do doodle poll again to set the general council meeting again?
Yes.
The timings and all things?
Yes. So,
It should be for fall, so am I going to do that right now, or?
well, we need to meet the general council needs to meet again in May. Our governing docs say that can be one time in May, which we've already met in May. However, the council did not vote to only meet one time in May, and that's the only way that can happen. So since they did not vote, we need to meet another time in May.
We actually could do email. There's one that says we can do email.
Oh, I did see that. Something
Email.
about, well, an email vote.
Yeah.
So if we give it 7 days and they vote via email. that's always a possibility.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not supposed to speak, but since I'm just briefly, is it okay
Yeah.
with you? Just basically, there was all this controversy. We still have it in our governing docs, but the past 2 years they were telling us we can't do email votes, so it's per open meeting laws. But we used to do that all the time before, so it's kind of up to you guys what you wanna do with that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the last section in the bylaws.
Yeah, and not to open up a whole nother can of worms, but this is a whole can of worms. Our governing docs say that we're supposed to conduct the meetings according to open meeting laws.
Mm.
Oh.
There has been conversation for years about if we are actually required to, other than that we have made that rule for ourselves, if we're required to follow open meeting laws or not. And that is something I have a particular interest in for numerous reasons. And from the research I have done, which is not complete research, I do not believe that we have to follow open meeting laws for the state of Arizona. And if we don't, I don't know why we would hold ourselves to that standard, because that is a loser's game. But for now, our governing docs say that that's how we are supposed to conduct our meetings. So until that changes, that's the rule. And I do believe that there is a lot in open meeting laws about online meetings and online voting and all of that stuff. So I'm not super clear on how we would meet open meeting laws to do that. However, if it's not gonna work to have a meeting, I think we should at least try to do that. I know there's not a ton of time left in May, we're like halfway through now. And I think our governing docs say you're supposed to send out like a week in advance, or is that just for scheduling the regular meetings?
Are you talking about for the an email vote?
No.
Or for a meeting, scheduling a
Yeah,
meeting?
for scheduling the meetings. I believe the documents say something about like you're supposed to give reps like 7 days to give input or
Or we
something.
can set the, no, my question was that the doodle poll, I was thinking for fall, not for these 2 meetings that we are supposed to do in May, June and July.
So I mean, I think we have to address the meetings for May, June, and July before we worry about fall. So as far as scheduling.
So maybe I can just do one by one step, like first for May and then for June, then for July.
Yep.
Yeah, that will be nice.
Yeah.
Because the schedules, each and every person is having varying things in these summer.
Yeah, and really that is up to you, however you think the best way to do that.
It's the 12th of May. I will try to send this email on this weekend, and I will make sure next week you are saying 1 week break, right? Means a time period of 1 week to decide. So I will not schedule in next week, maybe the
In the last week of.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think
On
that,
the 22nd week, the 22nd May or 23rd, 24th, that 5 days, whatever will be the most suited one, we will have the general meeting on that day.
okay, and while that's happening, I would suggest that executive board members review their schedule, and if there's a time that really is not gonna work for you, communicate that early, because I think it's very important. It's very important for everyone to be at the meetings, but it's especially important for the executive team to be at the meetings, and then also to really set the tone of how those meetings go. And so communicate that if there are certain days that don't work for you.
I will unfortunately already have to Skype in for that one.
So
Because you'll be in Germany.
how long, do you know at this point how long you'll be gone?
Until the 31st of July, because I had to give myself enough time to get the passport back from the consulate.
Okay, so you'll miss 3 meetings for the general council and then 2 meetings for executive board. Yeah, if you can Skype in, that would be great.
Just a small tip, sorry, for the secretary, since if you can do like live stream,
Mhm.
or later like re-listen to, like if there was a live stream, you can re-listen to it and try to like do the minutes based on that, cause Skype you might not hear it. I'm just letting you know.
Okay, and we can also work internally to see if somebody else can at least try to keep record as well, and that way we have a couple people trying to keep
Yeah.
track of that since we know.
Yeah.
And yeah, through their live stream, it's hard to remember sometimes that it's live stream, and so people will nod or do whatever, and not everything is actually said, because I've listened to some of the meetings, and you can't follow along as well as you think that you can sometimes. So for scheduling the future executive board meetings, I had suggested a few chunks of time. I would like to hash those out now if possible. So I think for the June meeting, I had suggested the week of the 5th. Or if that week doesn't work, the week of the 12th. I'm totally open. What generally works best for you guys? Evenings, daytime,
I think evenings.
evenings?
Either, yeah, that won't matter too much for me. My only, and this doesn't go towards either of the weeks that you mentioned, but only time I'm going to be gone in June is the 27th through the July 1st. So if it's those first 2 weeks, then it's completely open.
Okay, and
I think if we are doing a general council meeting in the last of May, we should have our executive meeting in 5th or 12th, because we do have to have our general meeting in June also.
yeah.
Yeah,
So if you're going on the 27th of the week, then we have to have our general meeting on 19th that week. So
Yeah.
yeah. We
I
have
mean,
to-
I'd be available on the 26th if it's going to be Monday meetings.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. I will be here on the 26th. I don't leave until the morning of the 27th.
And I will be gone on the 19th and 20th, and then potentially Anand and I may both be gone 28th, 29th, and 30th for the National Association of Graduate and Professional Students, which is like a national group that we participate with to a varying degree. They're having a leadership summit, so he and I may go to that if we can figure out how much money is left in the budget, because technically that is still this fiscal year, and so we have to figure out some things there to see if that's possible. We both may be gone, one of us may be gone, but we should try to avoid that time if possible, and then I will be in Seattle on the 19th and 20th, so.
So I think only week that left is 12 or 13.
Yeah, or if the
Or
26th
we-
works.
Yeah, I think
That's
maybe
another
we
option.
can do on Thursday or Friday. It's not that we have to do this general
No, we
meeting
don't
on
have to do
Mondays.
them on
No,
Mondays.
not at all.
No.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think that we'll have some options, and once you can get some feedback from the reps, if we know,
Yeah,
What their
Um,
schedules are.
because we need quorum.
yep.
Where we're just kind of hanging out if we don't have quorum, so, yeah, we need to figure out when works and then try to get those scheduled. So for the executive board meeting, after this conversation,
Mhm.
I feel like the earlier in the month, the better. So depending on what works, we're not, sandwiching those too close. Does Monday the 5th, June 5th work for people?
Fine with
Does
me.
For
Tuesday the
EB?
6th, yeah,
For
for
EB?
executive board?
If it's in the evening, yeah.
Either is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's after 6, then I'm good.
Okay, after 6,
Yeah,
because
I have to have a lab after 5.
okay, and mine is definitely like 5, after 5, so does 6 o'clock work for people?
Totally fine.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody have a preference between Monday and Tuesday?
Nope. Not really.
So let's just say Monday.
Okay, let's do Monday, June 5th. You'll notice that this agenda, you maybe didn't notice, doesn't have an end time,
Right.
which is how you're supposed to do agendas, because it's not over till somebody adjourns the meeting. And so we can aim for a specific time, but if we get business done before that, we can adjourn. If we're still going at it and it needs to run longer, there's no end time because there's no end time. That said, let's all be reasonable people and not filibuster or something crazy to keep somebody here. So we'll just set it to start at 6.
It's from 6 to onwards?
From 6 to
Onwards,
8
yeah,
and-
but
Yeah, 6 to 8.
hopefully 6 to 8.
Yeah, and unless there's something crazy going on, I feel like 2 hours is plenty. We don't need to be staying all night for these meetings, so we'll think about like a 6 to 8 time period, but your agenda will not say that, it will say 6. And then going to July,
It's
I feel
far.
like
It's far right now, we can't say, I think.
you don't feel like you can schedule out that early? Okay.
Are there a lot of people whose July is kind of up in the air?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm Germany, so.
Right,
it's
you're-
different.
Yeah.
You're in Germany.
Anybody
I think
have?
on June when we will be meeting, we will schedule the next one. That will be much better.
Does anybody have any times in July that definitely don't work for them? I was thinking that we should avoid the 4th of July holiday,
Mhm.
just because people may be traveling.
And I'm gonna travel back on the 31st, so if we could not do it.
Okay.
I'm
The
at-
31st.
I am attempting to go up to Alaska last week of July, beginning of August
Okay.
for a couple weeks.
I will be not in August here for like 1 week because I'm going on conference to San Diego.
Okay.
Okay.
Figure out July talk. July, do we have a date or do we want to discuss that later?
We should do it later. That's what I feel.
Anybody else have an opinion?
I'm open, my July's open, so.
Yeah, other than
Okay.
that one time it's open, but
Right
if,
now mine
if,
is open, but I don't know, maybe I have to go to the outside for some work things.
Okay, I'm fine with scheduling it
Okay.
in June.
at the next meeting.
Okay.
Again, just like I asked for this time, just know your availability, that way this one was pretty quick and easy, so, we'll plan on doing that, and then the governing docs, in my opinion, aren't super clear about this because it says once the academic calendar starts, that's when we have to start every 2 weeks. School, the first day of school is like August 21st.
Yeah, 21st.
Right, so does that mean that in August,
we can count
we
that
can
as
do
our
one meeting and that counts, or,
I mean, how has it worked in the past, also based on the orientation, the graduate student orientation, because I don't know how much work goes into that.
Yeah. We'll probably need one meeting a little early, so if you need any help from anybody for the orientation.
and that's what I was thinking is tentatively plan on doing
Mhm.
twice in August. If we only have to do once, we're
It
fine.
will be
And maybe we can do one as the official meeting and then just have a working group or something like
Yeah.
that, and it won't count against people, because I
Yeah,
know
Mhm.
starting school people are gonna, all summer people are busy. We're all busy all the time though, so,
Of course.
but we can do something that we can
Yep.
support those, events, orientation, and we can still be working together and getting ready for the big show this
Yeah.
fall with, all the reps here and then the election and everything coming up. So we can talk about that as well, because
We can have official in the first week of August and the non-official one before the orientation.
okay, and the orientation is I just saw this on the calendar, or on our website.
So,
I'll look this up.
It's the 17th, 16th, 17th.
no, 16th is the, 16th or something.
Yeah, August 16th, which is a Wednesday at 9 a.m.
It's pretty late.
Has anybody attended the graduate orientation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I mean, as
Oh.
a student.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent,
Jude was giving us a presentation last time.
excellent. I did not attend. I went to my departments.
I know, that's what I did too.
So, yeah, well, I mean, ideally, we'll all play a role in that, and then the events director will obviously be
think by then we should have our budget figured out. I think last time we gave from teachers and I think during the GPSC orientation.
Yes.
Oh,
So
is,
we're budgeted 10,000. I think this is a little bit higher than last year too. But we can change that if we.
And Kevin, I believe, during his, the current events director, who's leaving, and we'll have a new events director, I believe he made the recommendation during his report last year, that that's probably not necessary to go through the lunch hour, and that the students like the t-shirts a lot more than the food, and so it might be
Better
worth,
to just spend the money on that.
doing that. So we can pull up that report
Mhm.
that he gave, and he's still around, so we can, you know, talk to him about that and get his recommendation. So right now it's scheduled from 9 to 2.
I think for new students as a new grade, lunch thing was good. Because, you know, you are new in system and you don't know where to go to have a good food, and if food is served, it's good.
I wonder though if we ended it just before lunch, rather than having it be a scheduled part of the day, people could then start to explore that. We could give them recommendations. We could say if anybody's interested in going here, we're going there, and kind of open it up as a possibility for people who are interested in that without it being
How was it
part of the plan.
this year? Because last year when I went through it, there was a bunch of workshops throughout the day, and so there's
Even
like
this year it was.
it was workshops. So there's workshops up
So they
until
gave
lunch,
us
and
a
then there's
list.
workshops after lunch.
No, they actually
Right.
gave us a list, right, like these are, I'm talking about grad, right? It's a grad professional. And they gave us like 10 things, and there were different kind of presentations that were happening in this student
In the
center.
union?
Yeah, and it
Okay.
was my wish where I wanna go, means what my priorities are. Like there were like 6 things that if I want to learn more about the funding, more about the communication skill things, all the things that GPSC is giving. So we just, on the priority basis, we just went on the different stuffs and just listened to them. Because they were giving these,
But I don't remember if we had lunch from GPSC for that. I mean, like there was a GPSC separate meeting, one that was happening in the
Yeah.
ballroom. That was one thing, and there was one presentation just about GPSC which you gave us. That was just like a 1 hour presentation, just about not even 1 hour probably.
Did they not give you a lunch card? Like a
Yeah,
lunch
they
card
gave.
to spend in the student union?
Yeah, that's what we wanted.
yeah,
Yeah.
they gave like $10.
Yeah.
Yeah, $10 thing, yeah.
Exactly.
I don't remember, but I know that there was.
I think it's typically 10.
Right.
Well, look at this. If you get on our website and you go to events, you can go to grad orientation.
Yeah.
It'll tell
And
you
see all the things.
all about it.
Yeah.
And then, for you overachievers, if you go to the bottom, current and past graduate orientation materials and presentations can be found here. And then it's got them all right there to give us all the information so we can know what they've done in the past. And then we can work with the new events director and figure out what we want to
What
keep,
we gonna do.
Mhm.
what we want to revamp, and how we want to do that. But your summary was very accurate. The information has typically included financial aid, external funding,
Yeah, I remember.
mentoring, coping with stress, library resources, campus
Yeah.
health services,
I
time
have that book
management.
even right now, all the numbers and all the things, I have that book. It was really good thing that we were selecting the stuff, they were not forcing us that, oh, listen
You
to
weren't
us.
being herded from one thing to
Yeah.
another.
Yeah,
Okay.
And you can register today. And on this, we say you're gonna get a Arizona red shirt, a lunch. So,
Since we already have that up, I think we're gonna be
I would be
need to
curious to know
stick
how
to
many
that at
people.
this point, and then
yeah, that's what I'm
change it.
thinking, that how many people are registering, it's totally depending on
I'm
that.
sure not very many people have registered at this point, but we don't want somebody to have seen this and then
I guess,
they get there and it's not the
ISS will
same as
send a
what we
link.
said.
I mean, ISS are
No,
national.
you know what, Anand, problem is that all international students, they got early admissions and everything, but the one who are in US, they apply in July and then
Oh,
they,
yeah.
so it's it's like half dog's
Mhm.
job right now. We cannot estimate.
No, I'm like, I was just wondering, like, last time, do you remember how we got this registration?
Yeah,
I think it was through
ISS,
ISS, right?
yeah, they send an email and then.
So ISS sent most of the international students registration link for the GPSC orientation. So I'm not sure if it is sent to everybody else as well, like if the grad school
Yep.
sends it to the
Yeah,
others.
they so, they.
No, 'cause
so-
there
Yeah,
was
I
a
don't
division
think-
between international orientation and there were different things, but I think graduate orientation is for everybody.
Everybody, right?
Yeah,
Is
but I
everybody
don't
receiving-
remember receiving any information about what graduation orientation actually
No, 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 no,
consisted
no.
of when I came. So I'm wondering if the
He's
international
just-
students are better at.
He's just talking about the email that how do we enroll into that orientation?
Yeah,
We do have to enroll into that. He's talking about that email.
right,
They don't
right.
give any sort of email in which they do tell that what we are going to have. They
Okay.
actually moved to the GPSC website link where we saw all the information.
And it might depend on the department, cause I know my department always has a very detailed schedule about what to do each day and what time, and it's on there, and they make
That's
you register
different.
for it.
Sure.
No, but they make you register for that orientation.
Means they.
Meaning your department wants
yeah.
you to go to that. See, my department couldn't care less, but I think, I mean,
It's
that would
always-
be prudent of me and then the incoming events director to figure out ways of marketing it so
Mhm.
that people would see this value. Cause I was like, I don't need a tour around the school, I'll figure it out. Like, that was my feeling on it.
I just pulled my last year email. I got it from my program coordinator.
Okay.
I don't-
So that,
From
okay.
program
Well,
coordinator
actually,
has-
we got two separate emails, one from your own department and one from the university about this orientation.
Mm.
Because we are having two kind of orientation, one the university orientation
Yeah.
for all,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the other from the
The
department.
department,
So
which we
these
did
are
as
two
well.
separate things, we are not worried about the department thing.
No, what I said is that in our department, they list all the orientations you go to, so even the university and graduate
Yep,
orientation,
yep.
so
And they just
that's
make
why
it kind
we-
of a requisite experience, okay.
That's a good idea. Reach out to the program coordinators about this.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about this later, but I mean, I think it'll be really important for us to start making clear what people can get out of these events. Because if people don't know what's there, they're not gonna go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, cause I think there's a lot of great information that is provided. I didn't go, cause I think I kinda felt the same way, like I lived in Tucson
I'm kinda
for a
cynical
number of
about that
years,
sort of
I
thing.
knew what was going on, at least enough to, get myself here, get myself to my classes, do all that. And I didn't even consider all of the things that they would discuss, like the travel grants and different opportunities. And so I think that's a good point in keep in mind with how we do our outreach about this and how we communicate. And then we should also recruit some reps who come to it who want to be involved, and they may not know that we will have an election in the fall and that we have plenty of open seats that we need to fill, that would be great to fill.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll plan on having at least the one official executive board meeting in August, and then tentatively plan on having another like working group that we may
Mhm.
work,
Getting all of that together.
with the social committee, with the events person, who knows who we can pull in at that point. But looking at the past agendas, it looks like travel grants director, REAP director, they all do a part of that as well. So hopefully we can have a big group, working more than just that one meeting, but we'll plan on that as like our other executive board. Okay, so that takes care of future executive board meetings for now. Future or general council,
I'll send this weekend.
okay.
I'll send for just the May one, right?
However you wanna do that, but yeah, the May one should happen,
Before.
Pronto.
May.
yeah.
I'll make sure about May,
I would
then.
say at least do it for May and June because we are thinking about someone June middle. So probably it's just like.
Yeah, since we already have June's scheduled, I mean, if we
Yeah,
can send out both
okay.
at the same time.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll send
Perfect.
after the week that we had our own meeting.
Sometime
We're
between
having
the 12th
meeting
and
on
16th.
5th of June. I'll try to get meetings sorted out on the mid, like 12:30, 14, 15, whichever
Okay.
will be good.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you need any support or help to do that, let me know. I'm happy to help, especially since we're on a short timeline and,
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Everyone's favorite, internal committees.
What's
Dustin.
that? What's that?
Okay.
What's that?
Dustin, you wanna
Sure. So
take the lead?
So I sent an email out and that everybody has to be a chair of an internal committee. And so there's policy and legislative action, marketing and communication, social activities, appropriation, REAP, governing docs, and travel grants. So the problem is there are 7 committees and there's only 6 of us that can run committees. So I'm thinking that we should figure out how to consolidate some of these and maybe have 6 or fewer committees so that we can each share something. One thing that I've been thinking about is whether or not governing docs needs to be an actual committee. We can have that as an ad hoc committee. I'm thinking that the best way to do it is probably once a semester, like go through the governing docs. I know last year that one of the issues was a lot of people want to be involved. Kind of, they have different opinions about different things in the governing docs, and I think if you have a call for, you know, an ad hoc committee, and then have anybody who's interested in looking into the governing docs and meet for a couple hours, maybe one time in the fall and one time in the spring, you can do that. Another thing that came
I
up.
think this is good.
Yeah, another idea that I had was if you combine appropriations and REAP, because appropriations committee used to do club funding and POD, but we no longer do club funding. We no longer handle club funding, and REAP is also a committee that they handle their own. They judge. It's a group that judges the REAP awards, and I think. But the issue with that is they're handled differently, so that can conflict. I don't know if anybody else had other ideas.
Could you list the 7 possible committees again really quickly?
So it's policy and legislative action, marketing and communication, social activities, appropriation, REAP, that's research and project grants, governing docs, and travel grants.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
If you don't want me to, I won't give any comments, but, so just as a basic background info, so travel grants was created as more of a, sort of the travel grants director was supposed to be in charge of that, so that was the ad hoc committee. So the issue with the governing docs, and this is something you guys should figure out too, the issue in the past was that, the committee was necessary because there was sometimes when there were a lot of things that needed to be figured out, and then there had to be someone sort of responsible for implementing those changes in the governing docs and actually looking through the changes to make sure that what we were adding wasn't contradictory with any other language in the governing docs. So having someone at least formally responsible for that committee, and again, maybe that committee there could be something about that committee being, you know, if anyone else ever has ideas, and they would have to come to the committee, and they would, you know, like you could add people whenever anyone wanted to be part of that. But in general, in the past, it seemed like, despite all the additional changes that were proposed, having that governing doc committee in the past really worked. So, I mean, I do agree that there's a lot of stuff in our governing docs that are problematic, so just a governing docs committee will not be able to handle it, but I think having that as a basis at least might be beneficial. But again, if you guys, I don't wanna, this is just historical information, this is not something
So
that you have to do.
I'm just thinking of the manpower because like we went over, there's only 19 of us right now, and there's 6 of us to chair 7 committees, and I think that we like last year, we should not be changing the governing docs every week or every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right, we should do once, you know, I'm thinking once in the fall, once in the spring, as many changes as we want, and have an ad hoc committee do that. And then I think the rest of us we can evaluate the governing docs throughout the year, and then if we need to make actual changes.
Make suggestions for those times rather than.
Or maybe
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
have this as a pre-dom already schedule that this is the date on which we are going to talk about the governing
Mhm.
docs, and whoever wants something to change, we can have an argument on
I mean,
that
which
day.
would be, well, and that would be part of having an ad hoc
Mhm.
committee. And I think having an ad hoc committee doesn't mean that somebody's not responsible for it. It just means that they're not responsible for it
Mhm.
every month that a committee should be meeting, or however consistently a committee should be meeting. I think one important thing with the governing docs and what's been happening versus what should be happening, and this goes to the point of having a committee that just looks at it spring and fall twice a year,
Mhm.
I think is sufficient time to be able to get input, to figure out things that could function better, without changing things because it's convenient for whatever reason, for somebody's agenda, for, because we don't like how it's something as restricting as the whole point of governing documents is that it restricts us from certain behavior. And so to have it happen twice a year would mitigate people utilizing the time that should be going towards other spaces, in not debating what we
Just as
like or don't like about certain elements.
So a couple point of order is our website says the internal committees. There are 6 of them.
Mhm.
I think the travel grants probably isn't listed on there.
Correct, and Jude was chairing a committee, and Danielle was not chairing a committee. So, just FYI, that's how
Throwing that out there.
that was.
I know it. Daniel was doing the marketing, which Jude started. So Jude started when he was the EVP, he took care of the marketing. And so when he became the president, I think Daniel
Yeah.
took
Yeah.
over that. But probably it is not updated in the website for some reason. So I'm not really sure.
Travel grants used to, the travel grants director, so we kind of like made it a more sort of a non-EB committee. That's how it was created.
I think that's one of the things that we were talking about too the other day, that having more involvement within travel grants, within the committees with their own directors, because I think one of the issues is we don't have any involvement, especially with travel grant, because that's handled all by Janelle and everything. She distributes all the
actual funds.
the applications for judging, and then she goes through and decides who to fund, and then she disperses, and then we have no really input on that. She's making a lot of changes to the travel grants this year, and I'm wondering how much input we actually got to those changes. So I think having a actual committee run by one of us would be a good idea.
For the travel.
Yeah, for travel grants.
Yeah, because it is a committee, and the council voted to approve that upon Janelle's request last year. So
Okay.
Mhm.
if that's going to exist as a committee, I feel like one of the executive board members should have oversight.
And would
of that
that
process.
also work well with the changes that are going to happen with the travel grants? I don't have enough.
We're not
information
very
on that.
sure, we have not got an update on what those changes are,
Okay.
which also makes me believe we need to have someone there who
Mhm.
comes to this meeting and can report back and get input, and be that liaison. Because right now, Janelle does that and gets a lot of support from Carol. However, that budget increased significantly, and it's already one of our biggest programs. So now that it's our biggest program becoming even bigger, I'd like to just make sure that,
We have a handle on it.
yeah, that we're all up to date, and if we have ways to improve it, give input, have concerns, that we can address those. Because when it comes to the travel grants, it's a big deal to students, and so rightfully, people get upset, and we're all responsible at the end of the day for that, so I think it's important that we have some oversight and management of that as well. I do like the idea of having the governing docs be ad hoc. I might suggest more than once a semester, and maybe I just wrote this down, so I'm definitely not attached to this idea at all, but maybe to have a meeting in August to go through, find critical errors, things that don't make sense, things that are redundant, just clean it up.
So we start fresh this
Right,
next
and
year.
we can take that to the council at the very beginning, say these are the recommendations, provide our explanation, hopefully they will all be very straightforward, we need clarity on this, clean them up in August, then have the next meeting in November,
Mhm.
so that way we can get input all semester, people who have suggestions, we can put them all in a pile, go through that,
And
by
then
then we're up to
December.
speed, we know maybe what will work, what we wanna see, work on passing that maybe in December,
Mhm.
and then, do the same kind of schedule, so really, meet, skip 2 months, meet, skip 2 months, and then so, meet again in February, so anything that wasn't resolved in November, and then do like a final, this group's hurrah for May. And if there's anything at that point that hasn't been addressed, or that we are all wiser and can do better, then we can set that. And if at any point those aren't needed, it's ad hoc.
Mhm.
So, if we clean these puppies up in November and we're just good to go,
We don't need to
we
meet
don't need
February,
to.
maybe at the end of the year.
but kind of have that as a tentative schedule.
Mhm.
Maybe in spring we can go like on review, having one meeting just as a review that everything is good and
Yeah.
And that's probably a good idea to just,
yeah.
and if it's an ad hoc meeting and no one is then tasked with doing double duty, and I could be the ad hoc
Chair.
hawk. But I would ask if we're gonna do that all of you participate in that process, because you will know your programs at that point, you will know your roles, and
Yeah.
I would really like that insight and participation, and then also we'll reach out to all the reps and get as many of them at the table. And as the year goes on, people will have very strong opinions on these, so hopefully this will provide an opportunity for them to come
Yeah.
participate and improve our governing docs and consequently the organization.
And still have them make sense and
Yeah.
be clear.
I think that's a good idea too, because I think part of a lot of the discussions this past year were between executive board members disagreeing on governing docs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we're all involved in the process, then at least we won't have that disagreement there. Yeah.
So perhaps for the internal committees for now, we can look at governing docs will be
Mhm.
mine, and then the 6 that are officially listed in the governing docs. Other than that, we will divide among the 6 of you.
Mhm.
Dustin and I will work together to assign these,
Mhm.
per the governing docs, which aren't exactly clear on the direction they give for that, but that's something that governing docs can take care of along the way. But I know that he and I have talked about getting your all's input and taking that into account and your interest and expertise, so.
I think the one thing though, with the appropriations committee, I'm not sure without club, I don't know how much work that actually, I think that's the one reason I actually wanted to combine it with something else, because, I think they're only playing with $10,000, $15,000. Maybe plus $15,000 per trip. And each award is $1,500, I think.
So what about,
So I don't-
project grants? What's the
So
workload
REAP
on
gets,
that?
I have it there.
REAP is like what, 65,000?
So REAP gets about 100 applications a year, a little over 100. And there, it's minus the REAP director, without including the extra money that GPSC is putting in, is probably around 60,000. I think plus the extra money GPSC is putting in, it's about 60-some thousand.
And remind me with REAP, how often, do they review those applications? It's twice a semester, right?
No, it's
Every
6
other month?
times.
6 times.
Six times, I have it here listed, it's.
Wait, 6 times a semester, 6 times in
6
the
times a year,
academy?
so
Okay.
September, October, November, February, March, April.
Okay.
Yeah, Yeah, and they usually try to do a 2-week turnaround for those. That was one suggestion. I don't know.
I think it would be prudent to combine those two, seeing as, I mean,
The issue is they're
It's kind of-
completely different. They run differently.
Okay.
And that we do have a POD director.
but your suggestion was to appropriations and travel grants, combine those two, was that,
Well, no, because travel grants gets 900 applicants.
no, never mind.
And it's a decent amount of work for,
Yeah.
but I think, we could,
I couldn't remember.
I really wish I could have had this conversation with Charlotte, beforehand, but
And so, what's left in the appropriations now?
it's just POD.
Okay.
And, yeah, well, they technically are in charge of club, but we don't disperse club funding money anymore. We leave it to ASUA. So
So
somebody there needs to be on that board.
could that go with marketing and communications?
So the not travel grant, the treasurer has to be the appropriations. I think that's
Oh,
the
okay.
requirement, but, cause I think marketing and communication, I think social activities, and I think, legislative action they're probably full-time. Would you say, Jesse, that legislative is full-time?
Yeah.
Yeah. I never met with them, but.
It should be full-time.
So, I think.
And with my background and then my role and then hiring someone who's even better than me for that position that is now open or will be open, that should be a full-time committee. And I just, previous to this meeting, I was down meeting with the president of ASUA. And the main things that we talked about were partnering on advocacy and some of those issues to show a united voice. And so I think there will be a lot of opportunities there, and as much as we want to do, I think will be possible. So yeah, I would like to see that as its own committee.
Okay.
I think social is probably its own committee.
I think, well, it depends on what we want to do this year. Last year, Marquez didn't really do much outside of the traditional socials, in which case he handled most of the work. It was mostly, we met, I would say once a month for updates. It's like, okay, but we met mostly in, I would say, February, March to handle GPSC week and to volunteer for those events. I think most of it is volunteering. But I do have some ideas of other like small socials we can do and other events we can do. And I think the issue is, Jasmine mentioned when I spoke with her that social activities, the social chair, it's one of those that it could be a lot of work, and you can burn out very easily if you try to do too many activities. But I think that's why you have a committee, right? So you can distribute those.
Right. Well, and in my mind, from what I've been reading and kind of my own viewpoint, is not to have more socials, but to try and diversify the social types of social gatherings we have, to attract a larger body of students. So I mean, I don't know if that's kind of an obvious place. I'd be interested in chairing marketing and communications actually as part of trying to get the marketing and the social activities to go hand in hand.
Do you think we should combine those two?
I'd be fine with that.
Well, so I was just thinking along the same lines, if you peek over on my paper, then maybe we could do co-chairs, and that way you have a
There's a
partner.
support system.
And if somebody has something come up, we don't go 2 months without that committee meeting. You know, you guys can work together, and maybe then combining, and I don't really know if this makes sense, but this is what I had come up with so far, is like combining social and marketing. and having 2 people, take those, and then maybe combining REAP and travel grants, knowing that one is a lot more work than the other, but they're both grant programs, so.
Right, still
Also,
along
like,
the same.
I know Child Grants is making some changes, like they are gonna like do a 4-round introduction.
Mhm.
Yeah, 4 rounds.
If there is some way we can make sure that both the grant programs are like going a little, they are something similar, they can be managed, it will be more easier to manage that way. If they are like gonna do it totally different, it's gonna be difficult, but if they can make some changes to it and then like make sure that they are going hand in hand, it's gonna be like more easier to handle.
Or that they're at least syncopated
That's
so
right.
that,
In terms of the application deadlines, or,
Application,
yeah.
yeah.
That's, well, the application deadlines are listed.
one review
So-
deadlines.
But I'm thinking that what you're saying, because they're going in opposite directions right now, REAP and travel grants, because Janelle's doing her own thing, and then REAP is handled by us plus Charlotte, and they're doing it the way they've done it in the past, I think. And so-
Can you describe, when you say they're going in the opposite directions, I mean, it sounds like we're not entirely sure where travel grants are at the moment, but what do you mean by opposite directions? Just in terms of oversight or in terms of?
In terms of the way they're implementing it different ways. I think Janelle wants to make it more, because she's looking at it from the money side and trying to get more people involved in judging and more people involved in donating money. So that's how she's tailoring the way she wants to take it and make it easier for judging. And whereas in REAP it's kind of done the same way, like, right, we have a committee that judges and decides who gets awarded the money.
Okay.
So
Well, I mean,
that's
but
what I'm
remind
saying.
me as well, part of the difference between REAP and travel grants is travel grants, we try and recruit campus-wide to get people to volunteer to fill out the judging, versus REAP is done by an internal committee
I'm actually
from
not-
GPSC body, or no?
Yes. I'm actually not sure how recruiting is done, but yeah, that's basically it.
I mean, I know I've seen emails before, come travel,
That's
come,
not
Yeah, I did
I-
judging and traveling.
I did
So-
a travel grant like in January when I was not.
yeah.
Yeah. me
Which
too.
can be, my understanding is that's actually really, and I've been meaning to do it and it's just never lined up with my schedule, but my understanding with travel grants is it's really good to see that other side, so that when you're putting together, I mean, so that's one way I know that they package getting people to come and volunteer for that. Because in that case too, I see that maybe as a beneficial factor in that the committee would be particularly responsible for the judging of the REAP grants, but they might be equally responsible for getting other students to come and judge the travel grants, and kind of being aware of both might help them with
Mhm.
that. So that's
The-
my thought, that maybe it's a strength that they're kind of going in those two directions as far as how it's functioning.
So like let's talk to Charlotte and Janelle as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe see if we can like make them work together and we can put them out in the same committee.
Well, I think maybe having them have co-chairs work with both of those committees, maybe they can come back with an answer and say, there's a benefit to having them
Mhm.
operate in 2 totally different ways, and this is why. Or it would be a best practice to have them operate in a similar fashion, because right now, I think with it being disjointed, whoever is the expert in this doesn't know this, and so that's probably why we don't have that information to date, is because it has been separate. So if that same group, the co-chairs, can really become the experts in both systems, then maybe we can get some clarity on what the best way to run those programs are. If it is continuing to have them both do separate things,
Then great.
then that can be, the recommendation, and we can do business as usual. And if they get involved and they see that there are ways that we can make things more streamlined, share resources, best practices, then they may be well positioned to make those recommendations, because right now, I don't know those answers. I don't know why the evolution is,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
what it is and what the needs are. And yeah, I agree with what Dustin said. I wish that we'd had a chance to really talk with Charlotte and Janelle more about that. But that may lend to the argument that co-chairs overseeing both of those grant programs could be a big benefit to bringing back a full picture of those, you know, very large grant programs for us. Which if we were then gonna just join them, that would leave policy and appropriations, which maybe don't seem like they go together. But in my professional experience, money and politics always go together. So that may not be, maybe the least likely,
Mhm.
you know, or unnatural, but I actually think those would probably pair
Mhm.
pretty nicely together. And to kind of see how, okay, if this is what's happening in appropriations, how can we affect that through legislative action? Because I feel like that's always something that is a need to know basis. And so to maybe have that be under the same team would be beneficial as well. So that was just
the
a
the
thought.
issue
A lot of
is,
fun.
I mean, so appropriations. I'm not entirely sure what they do other than POD. Maria, do you know? Is it just
I'm not in charge of appropriations.
is it just POD that it?
I thought that they went to like the budget, I thought appropriations was like the budget
The overall budget.
meetings with like the CFO of
But
the
that's.
university and then like that whole finance piece. I thought it was more than just that, but I could be wrong because I'm not,
I mean, that could be
super clear.
the treasurer's job, but I think appropriations just does club and POD.
that we get money from, like you're saying, or that's the role, the
I think
whole
that's
role
the role.
of.
I mean, it's hard. Maybe we should contact Jared or Jim and see.
Yeah, and I can reach out to both of them and
Yeah.
just kind of get their 2 cents, and then I can also reach out to the Dean of Students and just say, can you provide a little bit more information about what this is, and, you know, but, you know, even if so, it may still go fine with legislative affairs, because hopefully
Yeah.
legislative affairs is like moving and shaking. So if the other one is a smaller.
Well, I'm thinking if it's just POD, then if we're keeping our POD
director, yeah.
admin director or POD club director, then it could be sort of POD REAP combined kind of, and then you can lump those 3 together, because those are judging grants basically. That falls under that category, and then you can have the budgeting side go to with legislative action, right? Something like that. I think that sounds like a good idea. So does that mean we're breaking it down to like, I'd say, is it 4?
No, 3.
One,
I counted 4.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, so 3 big ones, and then they're all co-chaired, right?
That's what I'd like to see,
I think
because.
that would be good.
Okay.
Having a
I think
moral
it'd be good
support
to
or
have- Yes.
that is the biggest
Yeah,
thing.
you know, like you can also work towards each other's,
Yeah,
strengthen
and the
each
brain
other's.
works twice if you are interpreting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
That sounds.
Yeah, so in a way, it's more work because you'll be asked to do
Yeah.
2,
And
but you'll
sometimes-
have someone there to support you,
Yeah.
and, you know, if things are crazy and you have to miss, then you know that your committee can keep
Moving along.
moving on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think hopefully it will increase the collaboration for the organization just overall if we're working with each other
Yeah.
instead of just these separate things that,
Right.
I mean, hey, I sat in the meetings, Maria was there, Dustin, we're not sure what some of those are, so it'd be nice if there were two brains that could, you know.
And
collect in
sometimes we do
vicinity.
have something in our brain and we are not very good to tell everybody. At least we must have one to discuss and see how strong that opinion is
Mhm.
to go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think it's good.
I think that that's a really great idea.
It also balances out the work. If one side is not, actually is not that much work, then they can help out with the other side.
Does anybody have any concerns about that?
So what groupings did we come up with? Social and marketing.
Social and marketing, appropriations and policy, and then REAP and travel grants.
Okay.
So essentially then you have grants, policy and appropriations, social marketing. I mean, that just seems like it makes a lot of sense.
I think if
Especially, I mean,
later on,
appropriations policy, we'll see, but,
I think if later on we have problems with this, we can figure out how to restructure as well.
oh, sure.
Yeah,
Just make
that's
smaller
not-
committees, basically.
Yeah.
And Dustin, I think that you're closer to right than I was on the appropriations committee. I found a appropriations committee status report that Jim provided in January 2016. And it has Geo Club, Informs Student Chapter, LASSO, ICAT, Department of Linguistics, School of Anthropology, College of Education, New Directions, Geo Club again, converted travel grants with a question mark. But that seems to be a summary of everything that is, which is like not even $15,000.
Yeah, and I have it here. We funded 4 clubs and 11 PODs, project development grants.
Okay.
So
Okay, so then I think if we know that, do we want to reconsider putting all the grant programs together? Because another alternative is you could put policy and governing docs together, knowing that governing docs is going to meet on a much
I think
more
that would
limited
actually
schedule.
make more sense.
But I like the idea of all of us being involved with governing docs though, and having this committee that we can invite anybody who wants to participate.
I kind of do too.
I feel like if anything should be pretty wide open, it should be the governing docs.
I think if we are going to increase the committee of governing docs, then it will be just a cat fight.
It could.
The more the people involved, the more the opinions are, the more the fights are, and it's same also.
Well, I mean, you could have
Because
a
it's
committee
need
and still
quality.
have everyone
You get
involved.
what I'm saying?
You could have
Yeah,
like a
I mean-
small
I mean,
committee.
Right now we are new, we are having everything in coordination, but classes makes
Yes
crazy.
and no, I think a lot of it depends on the tone in which we set.
Yeah.
That there's respect, that there's compromise, that there's kind of some sorts of sensibility of who we're serving to, that we're not setting these policies because it benefits us personally,
Yeah.
but who make it somewhat,
Yeah, maybe you also have the same right point that if somebody, there are a bunch of people who are controlling, they will change according to their own point of view.
right, well, that's why you have a chair. I mean, you have a chair, you have a co-chair, that's the person who kind of directs the final decisions.
You also have to
Having a committee does not mean that everybody's opinion is thrown into the document.
Yeah.
You also have
So-
to make sure you have someone formally responsible who's
Yes.
updating the governing docs, because there's no formal anywhere listed
did it.
who does it.
Yeah,
at
at
It's
least
not
who will
listed
be
anywhere.
accountable if something.
So you know
It's not
who's
good.
doing it, and you know.
I think the governing doc should stay with me.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if there are 2 co-chair, what if they disagree
Yeah.
on it? And then we got this back and forth where that way there's a clear structure and you all are going to participate. And then
Yep.
bring yourself to the table, be ready for a tough conversation. But these are our governing docs, so it shouldn't be easy to change. You should be justified. People will disagree. We'll have a respectful conversation.
Yep.
And if, at the end of the day, this committee will make recommendations to the full council.
Mhm.
They will vote to change the governing docs. So even if we all sit there and
Good.
say, we got this down, if general council doesn't approve it, doesn't matter. So we need to go through all those arguments, because when we go to general council,
We have to present it.
we got a bunch of smart graduate professional students in the room who will find holes in it, and they will ask very challenging questions. At least I hope that they do.
Mhm.
So I will hope that committee meeting is a good debate. and that we
Yeah.
challenge each other to improve these documents.
And the
Um,
more the debate is, the more loopholes there should be, that should come out.
Mhm.
Because the way we are thinking, maybe the
Mhm.
other way, people can think other way also.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think the governing docs, and Dustin and I can talk about this more. We definitely don't have to make a final decision, but after some of the input, I would be happy, I kind of take back my suggestion of combining them with policy, and maybe keep them separate.
Yeah.
And so keep policy and legislation with appropriations, or do we still
Yeah.
want to?
Well, I think that's the debate then, and
I
then
think
is
we
it
just
fair?
change it to budget, budget matters.
And that would include
So we
travel,
would-
project grants, and.
No, change the appropriations to be more about
Oh,
budget,
okay.
more about managing the budget.
So essentially, we would add on responsibilities to appropriations, is what you're suggesting.
Changing it mostly.
Or we
add
just,
on.
I mean, like, that's what I'm wondering,
I'm
is like, do
thinking
we
like-
change the responsibilities, or are we just changing the title so that it?
I think keep the title and then just move POD with REAP, just do REAP POD instead of Club POD,
Okay.
right?
So basically then, the combined committee of travel grants, REAP, and POD is grants,
Yeah,
funding.
yeah, basically.
So right now we
Grants.
have one is the
And we've
marketing and social, and then the grants, it's
Mhm.
gonna be like another one.
and then policy and budget. And I think that's,
I think those are three categories that make the most sense.
yeah. I like this idea, and then we split up, there's 6 of us, 2 each.
I would like to go with marketing and social.
Do you wanna distribute that now, or do you wanna,
If anybody has any,
Preferences?
preference, why don't you communicate that now, and then we can, Dustin and I, and Anand, we can meet and figure out if it all flows, then maybe we go with that. Maybe I want something else for you,
What is
so.
The social chair, in terms of historically, the social chair had the social committee, so
Mhm.
maybe, I don't know, maybe.
Well, I mean, we could
Okay.
co-chair that,
Yeah,
since we're
okay.
co-chairing.
And so what's involved in policy and legislation?
And
I
Um,
think Jesse can speak for that.
handling disputes, right? I mean, the committee, or at least.
No, it's really advocacy,
Okay.
like external advocacy, particularly
Oh,
with, the state, Arizona Board of Regents,
We need strong people.
the
in
state
that.
legislature, and then the United States Congress, including working with the National Association of Graduate and Professional Students. So they do legislative action days in the fall and the spring, and this committee will work on what issues we care about that we can advocate for or against. Student loan rates, food insecurity. There's a whole bunch. I could send you some documents on the different issues. But this committee will work on those types of things. One of the suggestions I made last year whenever I was the legislative affairs director was to look at it less as a legislative affairs position and more as a policy position, because a lot of the things that affect us the most are policies right here at the U of A, which is not legislation. It's an organization policy. But to keep track of all of those issues as they're wanting to do things. And so I do think it pairs very nicely with budget, because that's where we always have the big clash in the spring, which is, are they gonna raise tuition, fees? What is that budgeting process? Are they just putting it on the backs of students? Are the things they're asking for actually providing a benefit to students? All of those things. So to track them and then organize a response through letters, I set up a Twitter account for the first time in my life for GPSC advocacy, and would hashtag every Wednesday about Fund AZ students, because it was Wildcat Wednesday, and that's a whole thing that the outreach team here at the university does.
So I mean, that's one thing I do wanna say too, as far as we have these three kind of categories we've created, and they still shouldn't remain insular. I would hope that marketing, we would be able to help with, how do we get out to students the things that we're advocating for and that they should be aware of are happening prior to getting an email that, hey, these fees are going to be added on to you next year, you know, and things like that, because the more students who voice their concern about these policies, the more administration will listen. So I will say the more that we can bring this together and figure out how marketing communications can help REAP and budgeting and policy, and how REAP, you know, can help with policy and, you know, all of those things, then I think.
I love it. I'm so glad you said that. And we were speaking about this the other day in how does that get communicated, what one committee does, and really that's what the meeting is, right? It's not these long conversations about how you feel. It's the reports, the committee reports, the external committee reports, the internal committee reports. So, you know, when the assembly chair says, legislative affairs, give us your report, there is a report, a full report, keeping everybody, and then telling them, this is how we want you to engage, this is how you can support these efforts, you know, and then the other committees are sitting there and they go, oh, hey, let's put that on our agenda, make sure that gets on Facebook, make sure that's, you know, and then obviously in this meeting, really collaborating with each other to say, hey, we're doing this, can you make sure that we have, you know, outreach on this, or I know the policy, but I can't design something to save my life, so if I give you this, can you make it pretty? And can you make it in our brand and all that thing, you know, so everybody's working with everybody on those things, but yeah, that we focus the meetings on the business happens in the committee.
Yeah.
The committee then comes and reports, and that's how then we can all
Contribute.
know what so it doesn't just come in an email saying, hey, today's the day, you have lead up. And then also some accountability. If you stand up and say, policy doesn't have a report, that's going to be a red flag to me that I need to be engaged with that and make sure that that is moving for all the committees. And so that'll be one way that we all know, is your committee not meeting? Are reps not participating? Is there something blocking the road? And then we can, you know, all work together to make sure that everything's moving forward and nobody's just stuck over here with a group that won't respond, or, you know, they're confused, whatever.
Yeah.
So yes, I absolutely agree. And I think that's how we can be successful, is really supporting, taking our expertise and our niches, and then also, you know, building those bridges so we don't all end up doing everything individually, but we can all participate in everything. So, amen. I couldn't agree more. Okay, so anybody else have any strong feelings about which committee they would?
Travel and research, so the grant.
The grants, okay.
I think, I know there is a lot of competition for this marketing, but the EVP, I think the outreach goes really well with marketing. So I want to be like on the marketing and social as well.
Okay. And well, and since we already have 3 people ponied up for one committee, it's probably a good opportunity to say first and second choices.
Yeah.
That way, because obviously you can all see how this is going to play out, that some decisions are going to have to be made. And so if you have a second option, that would be nice to know as well.
Policy would be my second option.
I don't think you technically get a second option, but
Probably not. I
Just
just
like
figured I would
Savannah.
throw it out there,
Savannah
just in case.
also doesn't really have a second option. Yeah, I would be fine with grants or policy. I would be down with policy,
Okay.
but if, you know, if one of you guys prefer policy,
And yeah, do you guys have a second choice?
I mean, my first choice was actually marketing and communication,
Everybody
Get
wants
it on the
marketing
table. Did you say
but
that?
I just, 'cause there were already 2 people.
we're gonna vote on this.
I
Well, yeah, I think,
If
well,
that's
I
your
mean,
first
that's.
choice, then say it. You might not get it, 2 people are gonna not get it, so.
That'd be my second choice.
I think what we need to do is say what your first choice is. We want to know what your strengths are in that area and why you're drawn
And for
towards
you,
that.
it's between, the role was the same, travel and research transfer.
Okay.
So,
Mhm.
Okay. So that gives us a little information, and if we can't decide, we may reach out and ask more questions. Knowing that obviously not everyone's gonna be on marketing and social. Someone's got to do policy. It's important work. And grants as well. I mean, grants is like, ask anybody, they'll tell you it's our flagship. Which
mean,
I
the
say
policy-
sarcastically because we're actually an advocacy organization. And yes, I am biased since that's what I used to do and I still do. But, okay, do you need anything else on internal?
No, that's about it. I think that we made some good decisions. I think we just need to figure out who's gonna be on the second chair for marketing social.
Okay. Hey, not a bad problem to have. I like
Yeah.
that people wanna
What's in policy and budget?
Wanna-
So it'd be.
do their thing. That's good.
I guess Jessie can do it. Can you explain, she's asking questions about policy and budget, like what would, I think you explained it again, but.
Yeah, it'll be tracking, legislative issues, but we also have a director position that does that, and so they will be a key player. You will not be left alone to dig through the newspaper and, legislation, that we will hire somebody, which is what I did with, I had alerts that told me anytime anything on education moved in Congress, and, tracked all that, and then would provide those reports to the committee, and then we would all work together on how we could engage with members of Congress,
I would go with it.
do outreach and things like that. And so we're gonna have a director, and if they're gonna be great, cause they gotta get through an interview with me, and I got a lot of opinions on this, and I'm gonna be involved in it, and then we're gonna have 2 co-chairs as well, so it's gonna be a team effort. And so if you feel like that's not your strength, but something that you're interested in, and just let me make a plug, at the end of the day, it's the only thing that matters.
Mhm.
It's the only thing that matters. So if you wanna get involved in the real business, and I will just tease marketing and social since everybody loves it so much, pretty pictures aren't gonna help us
Yeah, I
No.
when they come after us, so.
They will get people to pay attention to the message though. But yes, you're right, you have to have a strong message
Add something
before you make it
first.
pretty.
I also want to add that it's part of your governance, right? So we're talking about a lot of the policies that are happening in the U of A,
Yeah.
fighting for grants, fighting for the money for grants, basically.
Yeah, that's the main.
So
thing.
fighting tuition and fee increases and stuff like that.
Well, and I would think that part of that too is having your fingers on the pulse of what the graduate student body feels about these things from
Yeah.
different areas. That you aren't
Yes.
just like me and my 3 friends feel this way, so everybody must feel this way,
No.
and kind of just being able to open up forums and get that input from.
Absolutely, and we do have an
Larger.
institute director which runs our surveys. And so this is a good opportunity to connect with them and say, I think all students care about, student loans. Nick, run a survey for us. Tell me what students actually care about.
Mhm.
And then have that to do the data-driven advocacy, so, because they will take us to task. The administrators will be like, that's what you think, but that's not what I hear. And if you can bust out a certain, actually, 85% of graduates say
Mhm.
it's a good position. And I know in the past, they've used some surveys to advocate for some real changes, and those were mostly on internal U of A policies. But we have that resource too, to tap into and work with. So
On any number of issues.
it's important, it's really important, and it's cool. Okay, so we'll move on from internal
I think-
committees.
I think Ahmadjad says she wanted
I will be in policy and budget. I will not be in marketing and social.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Then
I
you convinced her.
like it.
Yeah.
So we have, and then I'll take grants as well, right, and then, Anand can have
Marketing and social.
marketing.
Great.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think I just have one more question about these, committees. So there are 6 committees, or 7, but we're splitting them into 3.
With one
Are,
hour.
are they, are we still going to, I think we should still keep those, the chairs sort of separate, have, you know, one be like the official, but then they're still co-chairs. I think maybe something like that, or.
I kind of am of the feeling just have them co-chair and be in charge of both, because then they have a voice
So you
on
wanna,
both sides of it.
so we should change it to actually 3 committees, so when we recruit for these committees, you're gonna be either you're gonna be policy or budget, you're gonna be, marketing or social, or you're not gonna be policy, you're not gonna be budget, so it's gonna be, okay.
That's what I feel.
Yeah,
Does anybody
otherwise
else?
it will be like everyone but not.
Okay, I think that would.
Yeah, and
that-
Yeah.
you appoint the reps, so
Mhm.
you point them right there, and that's where they'll serve, and
Yep.
I think
At
that.
least they will have credibility in that area also.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that sounds good.
Just while we are on the internal committee, do you wanna talk about that, drive common folder which you want to?
Do you wanna talk about it now, or we can move, I was gonna move on later, but.
Okay, yeah, that's fine,
I mean, I guess I can bring it up because if we're talking about external committees, next.
Okay, so we only have 20 minutes until 6 o'clock. Not that we're done at 6, but I also don't want to keep everybody here forever. So, external committees.
So I have a list of external committees.
Yay.
That we have.
Feel
We
good
have,
about that.
it's like 50 external committees. Most of them have more than one slot. But there are about 10 that are indicated as important for EB. I feel like we could just do this later, I don't know, like.
Okay, and if you want to send out information and we can pick this up at the next
Yeah.
meeting,
No.
or even talk about it through email.
If there's any sort of information whatsoever you can get from the rep reports or from people, like some committees are, like, meet once a semester, and some committees meet every week. And some
So,
committees meet
yeah.
for like
So-
SS Fab, you probably know it meets like what, 2 hours every.
So here's the issue.
Something crazy.
I went through the rep reports. We have 10 rep reports.
From the 50?
There's 35 reps.
The past.
Oh, okay.
And
that's
10 of the 10 is the 2 of us. So
So there's
8
going to be
others.
pretty much no
Um,
information on these.
And in terms of external committees, I sent a survey out on Monday, and then I sent it out again. I sent it out on Monday, I got 5 responses, asking about what external committees people served on. And then half of them were, I was on social committee, I was on the travel grant, or REAP committee.
I didn't get it. I didn't get the survey.
You didn't get the survey?
I didn't get the survey.
Even me, I even didn't get.
Well, I sent it to the old people, so.
I didn't
Not
get
the new-
anything.
Oh, okay.
Really?
I was thinking that I tagged
I
all
will
emails,
double
why
check.
I didn't.
I thought I sent it to like 40 people.
No, I didn't get anything.
Okay, I'll check out who got it then, who I sent it to then.
Okay, and we can also talk to the Dean of Students, like Kendall, because I asked for her guidance on what would be the best use, in her opinion, would be the best use of my time, and then also the executive board, just to make sure that if there's something critical, that we know about it. So maybe I can have you come to that next meeting and we can
Okay.
go through that
Okay.
list, get some more information.
Okay.
The other thing there, Dustin, just one more, there's also old rep reports that should be available. The format this year was very different from what the format used to be. The format for rep reports, it used to be a separate document and people had to give more detailed information than just whatever they wanna say, and they had to talk about.
Well,
So
I-
maybe if there's any record whatsoever,
Uh-huh.
maybe you wanna look at the old rep reports too.
Uh-huh.
I think they should be somewhere in the drive.
Okay.
Anyway,
Um,
that's
I
just something
haven't,
else.
I don't think I have access to that.
You could ask Wei Ren maybe because he probably should know where they are.
Okay,
I
I'll
mean,
ask him.
if that's any helpful, because at least before last year, not this past year, but the one before, I gave like I try to give like detailed reports and how much time it took, sometimes a little bit, so maybe there's something helpful at least, or at least if you like the format of
Okay.
that, you can adopt it for your own use in the future.
Well,
So
I liked Jasmine's form because it was simple to fill out.
Okay.
It was just a simple Google form, you know, but we got 10 responses, so I think that's one of the things that we have to figure out how to. We have some ideas about how to get students to report monthly about everything, and then so we can keep track of their participation and the fact that they're actually doing things, and that, you know, we're getting information from these committee meetings, which is what's most important, because we don't get that. I do have a Google Drive folder, and I'll add you guys onto it, and I've just listed, I have documents for, just I think are important. One of them is being the list of reps. It has, that folder has the new reps and the old reps from last year in case you need to contact anybody. I'm working to put together a document for all the program coordinators so that we have a mailing list, because I want to contact these program coordinators to get new reps. There's the orientation I put on the drive. There's a bunch of other stuff. I'll also put this on there, a list of committees, external and internal committees, so you can read through them and see which ones you're interested in. There's a lot.
You had already, or are you to post it?
We'll add this. I have not added this yet.
Okay, then I'll help you do some research and try to
Yeah.
get a handle on which ones are the big responsibilities, which ones are less. And then when we go to assign reps, if you have a small one, you'll get 2. And if you have a big one, then
FAB is a huge one.
And then I'll also ask that the executive board members take on the big ones and do so with a good attitude.
There's a list of about 10 big ones, and I'll just summarize them and I'll send an email out.
Yeah.
And
could
then
you-
people can tell me
yeah.
which ones are, because I read through these like yesterday and they didn't make sense. Half of them don't make sense to me, so I'll have to reread through those.
Okay,
I'll summarize them, put them in a document.
okay,
I'll send them out
perfect.
this weekend.
So we will be doing external committees soon. Additional responsibilities of officers, I feel like there are just a bunch of things in between the internal committees, external committees, executive board, so we put that on there. I don't know that I have anything super pressing that I need to say right now, so if anybody else has anything that they have seen that they have questions on or that they want to highlight, we can do that now, otherwise we can move on.
Well, I think I originally wanted this on the agenda to talk about who's going to do a live stream, who's going to do this and that. But on this document, I've added some stuff that I think should be important for rep responsibilities, and a lot of them, I think a lot of people don't meet. But I think, like travel grant, you have to be a judge for a travel grant every academic year. That doesn't happen. I think we should do the same for REAP. And maybe do REAP or POD one a year. We talked about having reps give reports every month. So we do rotating reps, like, you know, half the reps will do reports on what they've done in their committee, and then we can rotate those. But yeah, I think live stream, I think Carolyn said she's fine doing that.
We can handle that over the summer while I'm gone.
Oh, I can do, I guess I can do that over summer.
Because
It's
I would need the password, right, to log into the YouTube account.
But you can't set up the live stream.
No, yes.
Oh, wait. Right? Somebody has to.
Telepathic powers.
Another thing was,
I like your can-do attitude, I like
I
it.
did try.
I will figure it out.
another thing was swearing in reps. I think last year it was, who did it? It was
Daniel.
Daniel did it, yeah. So either I can take over or I can stay doing it, because I'm responsible for the reps anyway, so it could be part of my job. I don't know any other, did you guys see anything else that was popping out as additional responsibilities? Okay.
Okay, then we can just leave it out there as,
Yeah.
keep this
Yeah.
in mind that there are things that do come up that are technically assigned to no
Yeah.
one. So as we see those, let's
Be
bring them
leaders.
back to this.
Yep. Yeah.
meeting, and hash it out and find out where it fits the best. And in the meantime, as those things come up, I mean, everybody's already done it, but step up and just do it till we figure out a better system, and it'll all work very well, and especially with the general counsel, that they're, as it's mentioned, a lot of last year was spent with the executive board members disagreeing with each other, and the general counsel sits there and watches it like a ping pong match. So if we can work together, and then we can come here and, you know, have it out.
Actually, one more thing.
Yeah.
I would like to have these rep responsibilities kind of gone through and edited and whatever, so we can bring it up to the council in the first meeting, and we can ask them to approve that. It would be like a bylaws change technically, because it is in the bylaws to
So
change
I'm
the
hearing
responsibilities.
governing docs in August.
But what I'm saying is I want to present this, I want to say, hey, here's your responsibilities, here's your responsibilities, these are our programs, and go, right? But I can't say that if we haven't approved the responsibilities yet. So I'm saying that we should figure out how to get these responsibilities
So how many
approved.
of these are not in the bylaws, or like, is there something that is, we are like trying to enforce?
I'm adding like 2
Just a
right
brief
now, but I want to
recommendation.
change these.
Since there's already some changes pending, I would recommend that, I think what you came up with, the covering docs, is a great idea. I would just say if there's really, and it shouldn't be, if there's any additional meetings, be open to doing them. Like in case there's something else comes up that you're not anticipating and you like need a change, and you're like, well, we can't make a change until November. Like you actually want to get business done until November, so. I don't know,
And
just keep
I would
that.
say that even with the grants, my experience with the grants in the past is it'll be 3 months before you even hear whether you got the grant or not, and they say on the website, expect to hear within a month, right? Like any of these things, I think we need to be open to
Yeah,
So
doing what we have to do to.
yeah.
I think mostly it's the ones that I'm trying to tie with their stipends.
Yeah.
So the
Right.
reps have to approve that. The general counsel has
Yeah.
to approve that.
Yeah.
So
So-
we need to have a recommendation this summer for one of those meetings,
Mhm.
so by the time the academic
Fall
year
comes.
starts,
Mhm.
we're all
Yeah.
done. Okay, I think that's, good, and I will figure out when we can get going on that, and then I will also,
Mhm.
go through the governing docs with those recommendations that you have, with the things that I've already seen as I've gone through them. And so in the meantime, before we meet, as you all are reading and rereading and becoming experts in, note it, send it to me. That way, especially if 2 or 3 of us are all seeing if we're seeing the same thing, obviously that's.
We can get it taken
Yeah,
care of before fall.
and then I can figure out, different things, so I can have some order, and we can incorporate all that, and I think that's a good idea to then get it on the, agenda for the general council for maybe July should be our goal,
Okay. Yeah.
because I don't know that we're gonna be able to do it by June. We might be able to. We're an ambitious group.
If we can't, then what I can do is I can put the old expectations first and then update this new document.
Okay,
Yeah.
we can even take a couple bites at the apple and do those changes if that's something that we're ready to
Mhm.
go, and then we can do the larger one down the road, so.
Okay.
Okay, and I will work on that, and I'll ask you to help get that in
Okay.
order, because I think that's important. Especially if we all start on the same page, the expectations. And if the reps vote for this, it'll be hard for them to squeal if they're held accountable to something that they voted for. Okay. Administrative and director positions. We won't go over all of them because it's not critical that we do them right now. However, we do have some openings. The events director is open. We are started the interview process. Dustin, Anand, and I are all part of that, as well as a whole committee of people. Claudia with the Dean of Students Office, Chris with the Graduate College, Kevin, the current travel grants director, Megan's given some input as well. And we will keep you updated on the hiring process as we do interviews, and then hopefully make an offer pretty soon, because this person is going to do the orientation, and so we need to get them in there as quickly as possible. And then we can also talk about how much overlap we want for Kevin to do any training. Since he's been in that position for a long time, he does have that knowledge, if that's something that we want to work with Kevin on. So keep that in mind. The current elections director is not interested in continuing on in that position. So that is definitely an open seat or position that we need to hire. I am going through the job descriptions for this position and then the next two that I talk about. So I will send those out, because some of them need to be changed. They're not consistent, like the rate of pay, and these positions used to get paid $12 an hour. They're all now paid $15 an hour, but some of them still say 12 and different things. So I'm gonna make them all uniform and do that, and then I'll send them out to everybody for input. Especially looking at how do we recruit the best people for these jobs, and so minimum qualifications, that kind of stuff, and what we're looking for and how we advertise that. So the other one that's open, as you've already heard, legislative affairs.
And we can run for these positions or not? Like for
Technically you can.
the election one?
Actually,
One-
election, you can't be, I think you can't be a rep.
Yeah, I
an
think that's the
officer.
one that has to be external, because you can't oversee an election in which you participate.
So I have to resign from my rep position or my social chair, or both?
These are hired, typically they're
Out
not
of-
representatives.
Oh, they're out of the rep.
These are people, that's
Okay.
their job.
Yeah, they're like our support staff.
Right.
Oh, okay. I get it, I get it.
So technically, and we'll just jump right into it now. The institute director last year was Nick, who is College of Education. So he served as the institute director, and then he ran for the council, and he was elected as the College of Education, one of their representatives. So there is nothing that I can see that excludes him from doing both. However, that position, they're one-year positions. So his time as institute director is almost up. We can talk about if we want to have him continue in that position, if we think that that's a conflict, if we want to open it up, and if he wants to apply, he can compete. All of those are options. My personal opinion, and I was asked this last year whenever I was a legislative affairs director, what I thought the better policy was, and I felt then and I still feel now, they're one-year positions. Everyone reapplies for their job if they're interested in doing it, but it's a competitive process. And if you're the best person, and they asked me when I was a legislative affairs director, and I felt like, yeah, game on. I mean, I've got a good resume for that. I got it last time. Now I have a year experience to come in and talk about this. I'm happy to compete for that job. And if you find someone better, hire them. Because at the end of the day, it's not about, oh, well, this person had it and they're our friend. We need to get the best people to support graduate and professional students and do those jobs. So I feel like they should come open, but that has not been how things have typically gone. And if you remember the last general council meeting,
Yeah,
they
that's
were
what I
wanting
was
to approve
going
Nick
to.
and Kim.
Yeah, that's what, even
So
I said this.
Heroes tabled it.
Yep.
I would say more so with Nick, because he is a member of a rep now. I think we have to open it up so that we don't,
It
seem like
doesn't
we're playing
appear to
favorites,
be, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So-
The same thing I actually objected in the first time when I attended the general council meeting, that why you are appointing, you means all these rep, and that it's like Obama is done, but he's making this, and the Trump is already the call president, but Obama is making a big decisions who's going to work in the Trump time. It's wrong.
I
They
agree.
selected one, and they said that the second should be gone on for the next meeting.
Mhm.
I don't know what they did on the next meeting, it's not in my mind, but
They
it's wrong.
continued travel grants and the REAP grant contracts,
Yeah, it's wrong.
which I understand there are some reasons for doing so. However, at the end of the day, these folks work for us,
Yeah.
not the previous council. We may have different intentions. We may
Yes.
think that someone that they think did a great job, we may have a different standard or expectation. So I do agree, on a policy level, it should come to us. However, the timing makes it,
Difficult.
which gets to another point, the way to fix that is to have our elections earlier. And that way those people are elected and they can make their decisions at their time
Yeah.
and they don't run into that, because otherwise, I do understand a little bit, however, why they kept doing it, and I really am glad that it got tabled, because at the end of the day, it should be this council's decision, so,
And I think there should be a law that after the new president is elected or new reps are coming, the previous one cannot vote for anything. They should be done each and everything, whatever they want to do before the election day. After the president, the new is announced, nothing should be on table for.
I think that we have to look at what types of decisions might
Yeah, effect.
that might affect and
Yeah.
that might need exceptions for,
Yeah.
which I think is part of examining the governing docs in
Yeah,
August to consider
because
what
the-
decisions the new council should make versus
Yeah.
this just needs to be decided because it's prudent for
Mhm.
the overall student body
Should
for
be
this to be
keeping track
decided.
of all the stuff
there's
you're
a-
mentioning, because this is all covered in.
And there's another
Yeah.
thing that Jasmine was saying about the traveling grant, I think so. That, yeah, on the last meeting that she's having like 13 applicants were there, they had the budget of 8 and then they recommended for the next year physical year.
I think that was
means-
REAP,
That was
but yeah.
Yeah, but it was like she was doing the next year fiscal decision that, okay, grab these students from here and
It's
put in.
problematic, yeah.
It's like that student is going to use.
Yep.
And
it's
what
not-
really
I
has to
didn't like
happen
that
with
thing.
Right.
no, I agree.
Yeah,
'cause
so that council continued that director and then allocated our money,
Yes.
when at the end of the day,
Yep.
we should choose that director and we should allocate
Mhm.
that money.
And actually, they should reject the student. If they don't have funding, reject them. That's
Yep.
how the
Yeah.
thing
it's competitive and the top,
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
And apply
especially
earlier,
where they
apply
said
next
some
time,
of
yeah.
them
Otherwise,
weren't.
they will not. It's all about the budget and
Mhm.
the competition. Who is the best? Who he got it. It's not that we have to give each and every one something.
So I spoken with Charlotte about this, and we're gonna make changes in REAP awards so that this doesn't happen, so that we don't do this where we roll over.
Yes.
To the
There
next
should not
group.
be. Actually, it doesn't make sense of
That's
rollover
that
thing.
that
No, it's
that's
fiscal
going to change.
responsibility.
Yeah, that's
So
gonna
it's
change next.
$6,000 or something?
I don't know, but actually at that time I was thinking that maybe I didn't understand what she was saying, but after then I
That's-
just
Yeah, so-
rewind everything in my mind and I was thinking, no, it's not going to work.
So what the issue was last year, they rolled over, I think it was like a lot of money, it's like 30% of this year's budget was dedicated to rollover. And this year it's smaller, but it's still, I think it's closer to 12. It's
Or,
about
yeah,
12,000.
I'm trying to
Um,
remember, but.
It's about 12,000 because some of that
I
money
think we
is
should make
dedicated.
something very strict about these rollover thing, that we should stop this rollover thing.
The only
It should
issue,
be
Well,
good.
and that's up
At
to us
least
to
budget
decide
means
that
this is
a
your
budget is a
It's
budget.
not that you can actually grab something from the next budget.
Yeah.
Have you not seen how the US government works?
No,
We haven't,
it-
that's
it's-
what we're
it's
trying
going
to
to-
I
do.
know.
it's going to change. It's going to change,
I'm
yeah.
totally with
We're
you.
not gonna do that anymore.
Yeah. Actually, we should think about this. It should be something good.
I agree, and we should also, just as we serve, think about how your position was handed to you, and then really consider how we hand the positions in the future. And I will leave it at that, because I think there are a lot of processes that could be improved, but it takes vision from the beginning, right? We're probably not going to get at the end and then do it. So keep that in mind as we go, but I agree that a lot of that needs.
Yeah.
And your example, I've used that exact example, like, how do you think it would go over if Obama were appointing Trump's
Yeah,
people?
it's-
And the answer is,
When the president is select, then the previous president, they don't have any authority. He's done. He's just for a namesake.
Yeah.
yeah, once you're sworn in, and, yep,
Yeah.
that's, and also to say, okay, even if the swearing in isn't until next week, let's not load up this last agenda and tie their
even
hands.
Uh,
Because
I was
that's,
just,
Yeah.
in India what happens is, like, there's an election committee. When they actually announce the elections, the president and the state people, they actually lose all their holds. They cannot make any new announcements or anything. It's done. That election is announced, the date that this is the done, then they cannot do anything. I don't know how US government works. But
Not like that.
in India it happens.
okay, so the other position that's open is the development associate, and she is not going to continue on.
What is that? I've never, development? Sorry, I'm. like,
Sarah
what is-
Netherton
Oh,
was in
the
that
development.
position.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
Sorry,
I just couldn't figure out what that thing was for a second.
I'm not going to make a comment. Development associate is open, and so, again, I'll go through the job description and send that out. It is the second largest stipend that we provide, not counting the GAs, for these admin and director roles. And as previously mentioned, not everyone was sure what this position did. So I would ask that you keep a critical eye on what this position can be and how we can recruit for that, because there's a lot of opportunity for this organization to raise money. As you probably already see, we are all going to be very busy. A lot of that will come to me, but this is a support staff to help with that. And so I think it's a critically important position. And
So I'm hearing
How
fundraising.
you
is a-
select this weekend, recommend somebody, or how it goes? Like, you are having these positions like on GPSC and
People apply for them on the job site for,
Okay,
and it's listed as a
Like
G.
how we are doing for the
GA
youth,
position?
like,
No, they're
It's
stipend
one
positions.
position.
no,
Okay.
this development associate or election reps, like if I have someone in my mind that who is good.
Yeah,
Who can-
yeah, so once we get the job description, it'll get posted on,
GUA jobs.
yeah, and then also on our website, and we'll have a little email. I don't know if you saw the events director one when that position, so it'll be similar. It's not a GA position, it's a stipend position, but same process really. Well, there'll be a committee, we'll do interviews. I mean, we'll get all the applications, we'll go through, we'll do interviews, we'll make the offer. And so, yeah, if you know people, I would absolutely encourage you to recruit people. That's one of the ways that we can find really good people, is reaching out to the people that we know have these skill sets and will do good work, and saying, hey, do you know about this opportunity, and encouraging them. And then also sending it out to your broader list, even if you don't know, maybe someone they know knows somebody.
Yeah.
And a lot of these, especially in the summer, people may not be keeping
Yeah,
in mind
that's what
out,
I'm
you know.
thinking, that there are sometimes that smart people who can do that, but they don't apply.
Yes.
So you say that you push them, like I push Anand to go for it.
Well, and
I think it will help.
for example, last year we had one person
Mhm.
interviewed for the development associate position. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities to really reach out, get as many good applicants as and then
Yeah.
make it a hard decision because we have so many good people. And with the events position, I think there are several applicants that I'm sure would do a great job, a number of them. And so that's the kind of situation that we want, that we have 26 applications and we have to go through and, eliminate people who would probably do a great job.
Be nitpicky, yeah.
So the other position, the one that got tabled, is the
Is?
the professional development grants director position.
Is that the one that Nick is holding?
No, Kim is currently in that position, and it's a bit different because its budget is much less than before, and this person, when she submitted her report, the person who's currently in that job, who is interested in continuing, didn't utilize very many of her hours, and I just sent this to Dustin and Anand last night, but I can't think of it off the top of my head, but
It's
she didn't.
832.
She did what?
$832 dollars out of the 3,000.
Okay, and that's for the one semester. I don't know. Well, she wasn't in the position the whole first semester.
I mean, even if you double it, it's
Yeah.
still about half of what
Yeah.
we budgeted.
So then looking at, and if we're going to advertise the institute director, given Nick's involvement as a rep, and then elections, legislative affairs, development are all getting advertised, maybe we advertise all of them, and if Kim would like to apply for that,
Email?
she's more than welcome to do so, and I would encourage us to take the recommendation of the previous council if they thought that she did a good job and that we take that into consideration, but that's maybe my 2 cents, is that we advertise them all and then start the positions.
I'd say we'll do that because like it'll be like a precedent. I don't want people to like just recruit the same person like again and again. So others don't even get to know the idea about like, okay, there's a portion of the GPSC. So at least when we keep it this way, people know, okay, like we are doing a process every year where we are in such people.
Yeah.
So maybe we can set a precedent that way.
Yeah, and the other thing is that when people are new in something, they actually put efforts. But when they know the system, how system is working, they just go.
They
by
start
the flow.
following what they're used
Yeah,
to doing.
they just go with the
instead.
flow and.
I'm not against having the same person, but I think that everyone else should have a chance to test.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would want to hear, what did you learn? What would you do differently? If the
know that
person
they
wants to
actually are
continue.
going to continue to improve the process.
And I would say for the positions from the last year, since I was one of them, some of the reps knew certain positions very well because they showed up all the time and were active in a lot of ways. And others, I would bet that most of the council and even the executive board didn't really know who they were or what they were doing. And so, again, if that person wants to come in and make their case, maybe harder to sell, where, like I said, before I decided to run for this position, I was planning on continuing in that, and I was happy to come in and talk advocacy, and would have been a stronger candidate than I was the first time, because I had learned a lot and had more experience. So I'm good with advertising all of them and doing them all together, if that makes sense to this group.
One point on that, but I think Carol sent us a mail about like if we wanna like the contract for these 2 people.
Yep.
So that is one thing. So if we are gonna hire these 2 people again, they want us to like let them know before like June 30th.
Yep.
So that they don't have to redo the contract all over again.
And Jesse, you know both of them personally?
I have never met Kim.
Okay. If you
I
think they are good, then we can,
have never met Kim. I would like to meet Kim before
making decisions.
I offer her a position to continue
Yeah.
on in a role that she didn't submit a report that told me a lot about what she did and what that role can be. So I would like to talk to her.
Yeah, I think that meeting her is a good idea. I think having somebody who roll over
Yeah. it's
with
also
the
good.
experience, because we lose the experience in club and POD, and so if she's gone through that and she knows a little bit about it, I think that's a good thing because that actually helps us out. But I don't know, I've met her once and I don't feel that that she's she knows that really well, and she's been involved in going to the meet. I don't know. I
You don't
get that
necessarily
feeling.
get the feeling that she's the expert in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and I also don't get the feeling that she's gone to the meetings, the
I
ASUA
wasn't,
meetings.
well, I was at
So-
the EB meetings, I don't think we, like, it wasn't like we saw her, like, I know like Jessie came a lot of times, actually, like, you know, that's just a fact, if you, like, I'm not trying to praise anyone or do anything, like, I just like saw certain people at meetings, and as a secretary, I have to take, you know, note, and
Sure.
I just didn't, like, certain administrators just weren't going, like, I didn't know what they
They
were
were just
doing.
doing 8 to 5, get out the door.
I didn't know what they were doing, I had no idea, and
Ish.
like some of them,
Ish.
like, they didn't show up to GC meetings, and even not even to EB meetings, or maybe they showed up once, and that was it for the whole year.
So I think it's a good goal to have all these positions hired by then, since the start date is technically July 1st. For the ones that have a person who is interested in continuing and we anticipate will reapply, so the institute director and the pod grants director, we will keep that in mind, that if at all possible, we make that decision. Worst case though, they have to redo the paperwork, and I'll
Yeah.
break that news to Carol, and we will try to do this earlier in the future.
Yep.
But for now, I think that this is a fair system. That said, when we're hiring all these people, that means they have a hiring committee, and so for the positions that you will work with, and I can help provide some guidance, please participate in those hiring committees and play an active role, and make sure that your voice is heard and that the voice of GPSC is heard in those. And so I will work on the job descriptions, just cleaning it up, rough draft, and then I'll send it out. Everybody can contribute ideas, and then, but ideally, we'll get them posted soon,
Yeah.
and then we can start the process.
Just send emails, and in the next June, we can have, we will finalize and post it.
I think, I mean, for events director, it's been already taking like a month for us to go through the whole process. Like when we posted about the job, and then like, you know, getting the resumes, and we are planning to do everything by 26, so it's almost like more than a month. So if you are gonna do it by, if you wanna have them on board by like July, we should like start at the earliest.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
we should also have it approved by the GC, right?
Well, that's,
They just approved the final hire.
Right, that's it,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah,
Once we make.
but
the
yeah, that does
recommendation-
have to go through that step as well, which is a good
So we
point.
need to like, so I don't know, like, can we do it? So maybe we'll meet somewhere in the middle of July, so can we put it for a motion on July middle?
Well, we have to see how many people apply and if the committee can get through the process that quickly, but that should be a goal. Some of these are less critical. For example, if the development associate position isn't filled at the turn of the fiscal year, it's not that big of a deal, because we don't have anybody like continuing, so we're gonna have to do the paperwork. If they start 2 or 3 weeks later, I mean, it's a bit of a missed opportunity to get going in that position, but you all know as well as I do, it's summer in Tucson. A lot of these positions aren't really gonna do very much. The bulk of their work won't come. So if they don't if they're not in chair on July 1st, I think that's okay, but I think we should have that as a goal. And for the positions that we can move forward on, let's get our team in place and, you know, get working, because it goes quickly, and by the time they learn their position and figure out who's what and what they're doing, you know, time's ticking. So I will work on all of those, and I might send them out a couple at a time, and that way, if we can post them, we're not waiting, you know, on this longer term thing.
I have one question about so is Kim still working? Cause I know, she still has hours that she could fill in. I know that, I don't know if we approved it or what we did with it, I forgot. But we usually get summer, applications for club funding. And I know that the issue was that ASUA doesn't do summer funding, and whether or not GPSC could, pay for some of that. I don't know what we decided.
And I will go back,
But-
and that's one of the things that's not consistent in the job description. Some of them say the position is August to May, and some of them say July to June. And I don't think there's a rhyme or reason these positions are needed. I think it's just
Mhm.
As the,
piecemeal. So I will go back and look at Kim's, and then I will reach out to her and ask her, is she still working? And another note, because this came up with the reports, I'm going to require that all of these positions that we just talked about actually fulfill what their job description requires, which is the GA positions, so travel grants, REAP grants, and events director. They are responsible for attending one general council meeting per month. And we're going to hold them to that and have them come in and talk to the full council. That has historically not happened, but I think it needs to, and that's what our documents say, so that's what we'll do. The director positions, or pardon me, the admin positions, the stipend positions, because some of the titles are director, so the stipend positions are required to come to 2 executive board meetings a semester. And we're gonna ask them to do those things, because that's what our governing docs say. And then also that they're going to report their hours monthly. Right now, we did it at the end of the semester, and we had one person submit for more hours than the budget allowed for. And there was a big internal conversation about, well, if she was still doing work, she should be paid for that. Did she communicate with anybody that she was over her hours? If we had known that, could somebody else have taken on those responsibilities? So we can track that better and know if somebody is way over or way under. We can predict that with a little bit more accuracy. And I also think when you look back over time, it's easier to fudge a report here and there, where if it's monthly, we might get a little bit more accurate picture. And then also if they need guidance, if they're not using their hours, if they're not doing the work that we've hired them to do, then we need to step in and provide that leadership and guidance to make sure that they are, because on one hand, we don't want them billing us for stuff they're not doing. On the other hand, I don't want that money to sit there and it come back because people underbilled. We've said we need those positions, we need that support, and so we want people in there doing that work and utilizing that. So, and I will communicate that to them about their expectations, but that's all in the governing docs, other than the monthly reporting. But to me, that just makes sense, so we can track it, especially given what happened this past time, which is they then approved it, and again, that comes out of our budget going forward. So really clean up the process, I think, is a good idea.
I think
Okay.
to talk to Megan about the summer club thing. She was the one who
Okay.
proposed it.
Okay, that's great, thank you. There's no Dean of Students office representative here to give us a report. So moving on, then next is events and social activities. I just added this. We're already way over on time, so it's fine if we want to skip this. But I was just thinking, is there anything planned for the summer? Do we want to have anything planned for the summer? If you have anything to say, if you don't,
I was
we can
thinking it
move on.
might be a good opportunity. I was going to try and reach out to the Desert Museum and see if we couldn't do maybe an evening event or something at the Sonoran Desert Museum for anybody who's in town to actually get to go do something very Tucson. I haven't had a chance to see what events are generally done in the summer. I know that we're looking towards August and the graduate orientation. Mostly what I'm going to be preparing for in the summer is a social media strategy for marketing and communications, and to be trying to find some ways, and it's good to know about the surveys. I really feel strongly about trying to reach out to groups of people who maybe aren't on the social scene that's been thought of in the past. So families, people who are maybe non-traditional students, international students. I would love your guys' input on what helps international students when they come here, especially if they've never been to the United States. Yeah.
There's a thing here when we, as an international student, right, the first thing that happens is the matches that are happening in the stadium. And I do remember my first match was when ISS, they sent an email that, oh, you're going to get free to go. And I went there, the first time was like that because it was free, and my friends, all other friends, they were also ready to go. I think you can do that in having a coordination with that and having a.
So once fall starts, having.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, ISS doesn't, maybe we can just coordinate with them.
Yep, yeah, you can coordinate
Walk
with
in
them
it.
and go,
Yeah.
because it was really fascinating thing that, but it was in end of November and I was.
Maybe.
And also
Yeah,
to
because-
know what they do, because they have a lot of events.
In the summer, yeah.
Sometimes I think for graduate students, it might be.
I think
Some-
coordination will
some-
help you financially also,
Yeah.
and yep.
Some of the stuff ISS does, you have to pay for, so maybe there's, I don't know how much we have in the budget at all, but if
No,
there's
I'm
something
gonna
we
have to look
could
at budget as well
pull
as-
in and have some of that free when we work with ISS, I think would more, for example, I remember I didn't go to some events cause you had to pay for them, like, I'm sorry, I don't have the money for that.
Right.
So, and also, I don't know, like, maybe there's something, cause it's really hot out, maybe there's something you could do at the rec center. I don't know, like swimming pool.
Speaking of that,
Yeah,
so
and even the rec center, they create so many events that are so good, but because they are not approachable, because we have to go to rec website and then look around and see what they are doing, and then.
And also over the summer, you actually have to pay separately, cause you don't pay tuition, so there's like, you, in order to use the
Unless
rec,
you pay.
unless you
That's-
pay, you can't use
that's-
the rec.
that's changed with the
It's
Yeah.
GPSC.
Oh,
So
Well,
if you're
is that
enrolled,
in,
if you're enrolled in fall.
but
for
has that been
classes-
approved by the board of directors
Yes,
or by the?
that's,
But is
they're,
that, is that for
they're,
continuing
Yeah, I am
students?
happy for them.
they're finalizing the language to put,
No, I think it's
but
already
they
done.
said that over the come summer,
Not
I
this
talked to
summer?
Melissa, she
It
said,
is
come
done.
summer,
Like, yesterday
if
I
you're
talked to
enrolled in the
them,
fall,
message
you don't have to pay
screenshot.
rec center fee.
So if now, for example, since I'm not a new student, so if I would want to go and
I
use
think
the
that
rec,
rolls
would they
over
let
for
me?
continuing students, I'm pretty sure, she told me that
I think so too.
and I was talking to her specifically about me using the gym.
But regardless, so these are all helpful things. I mean,
But
I don't know how much of there's a student life on campus or how much we really want to use a lot of budget anyways over the summer, except to give students an idea of what is around Tucson
Yeah,
if they
yeah,
don't know,
Yeah, that'd be
and
good.
things that they can do, and maybe have an event or two that would be open to graduate students or less money for graduate students, or maybe,
Yeah.
you know, if we can get a donation, it's good for, I don't wanna belabor plans for the fall at this point, because
But it
I
just,
wanna
like,
sit
popped
down and
into
look at
my
what's
mind.
happened, yeah, and this is all just to say, really, I want input,
Yeah.
but what I'm looking towards is to have more than what people generally, undergraduates, tend to think of as social events, right? Like, I really want to think outside the box. We have, what,
You can-
10,000 graduate students,
Yeah,
and
and
about
the-
100 at any given event actually come.
Yeah.
So how can we diversify the types of social events we have to reach more students and give them opportunities to be part of campus life? That's my thought. And then the
There are
most
so
important is
many,
making sure people know.
Yeah, there are so
what's
many
happening.
events that departments are doing. You can jump
Oh.
into them and you can actually let that things happen into bigger level.
Well, and
or
that's
interdepartmental things.
so that's something else entirely in my mind, because departments need to have their own interdepartment social events. There's going to be colleges that have their own events. But in terms of how we spend the budget for social activities, I want to make sure that we're reaching more people and giving more opportunity to people who haven't been considered in this area in the past.
So I just want to say something. So last year, La Idea, the graduate housing, did a deal with the rec center for swimming lessons, where they wanted to pay for half of it, and I think they didn't get enough turnout, so they ended up paying for all of the swim lessons students, grad students and their residents. I think other grad students went. I think there are members of GPSC last year, like that did not live in the graduate dorm. And GPSC, on top of that, they did, they subsidized or they paid for free smoothies every Thursdays for grad students. I know Rahul asked me, wants that to continue for next year, for this year. I thought I'd bring it up. If you decide that's a good idea, it's about $8 a smoothie. I think they usually get about, under 10 people show
And
up.
where they give these movies?
I never
At
heard
the rec
about
center.
this.
This was,
I mean, this is part of the problem is that there's
even I
things
haven't, that's why I'm
that they're
asking.
trying
I
to
have
do
no
with
idea.
people and nobody
Why
shows
I
up.
guess
I'm part of the, I was part of the, I've never,
I
And,
was-
and really, I mean, the
told-
other thing that I feel really strongly about social activities, I think it's important for people to be involved in campus, but being graduate students, we have a unique opportunity to get to know students in other areas.
I think the
And so
problem
a
is
social event like
publicizing
that,
them.
how is it accomplishing that goal of getting interdisciplinary conversations happening? Are they just showing up and getting their smoothie and leaving?
well, it's a smoothie happy hour. Like, you go there to have swim lessons. You meet the people that are there too, because they're usually graduate students only that do the swim lessons. And then afterwards, you socialize.
Now then the other
smoothies.
question is it only
Which
available
lessons
to
was
graduate
it?
students who pay for
Swim
graduate
lessons?
housing?
Swimming.
And then
They
should
were very
GPSC be in charge of that?
Because apparently there were other students.
So
Well, I mean,
there
because
are-
you mentioned it
What
was
if you
through the
don't do
graduate
swimming
housing.
lessons?
It was, but I'm saying like that's something that if GPSC
No, I
wants
think
to
that that's
partner
really-
with them,
Yeah, yeah.
advertise, because they have a budget
Okay.
to support
Yeah.
X number of students. We can also add on top of that a support of X number of
No,
students.
I think that would be great, and I think
know.
that it would be good to encourage,
I
like
told
physical activity for graduate students who are
I
usually.
told Rahul that he should figure out the deal with the graduate dorm first and then approach us for
Absolutely.
suggestions, but that could be something that we do over the summer.
Okay, so we're to announcements. This is free for all.
Just one thing before, we were talking about all the budget, like we
Mhm.
wanna do something on the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to like take a look at the budget sometime? Do we plan for it?
Yes, and I actually sent an email this afternoon, asking our Dean of Student Staff for any budget update information, that they can provide. I was hoping, I sent it pretty late, today. I was hoping maybe they would,
No,
Have
today's
it ready
staff
for
is
me.
free after 1.
what?
Today, all the staff and the.
Oh, because of the,
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Because-
Well, then, yeah, I missed them by a mile.
Yeah. I even
I forgot
had
about that,
an
yeah.
important email and it didn't go
Because of
through.
graduations.
But I will try to get that information from
It's
the
a
powers
policy
that be
posted, like,
and
I
find
know.
out what is left in our budget and all that good stuff.
Class, okay, and he gave.
And
me
I will share that
email
whenever I
and
get it.
I just took all my stuff
'Cause I think
was not expecting.
It'll be beneficial for everybody to have that information so they can,
I'm guessing
Really
by
go
June
through it.
we'll know what next year's budget is maybe.
So-
we have, I mean, the last council passed, a budget. Did I not send that out?
You probably did, I
Okay, I will
deluge
double
with
check that.
emails on top of yours,
And when
so
I
I've
get
got
this, I'll
to,
send them both, so we know where we are and then what's
great,
in that budget.
yeah.
We can vote to change that budget, that's
So we emailed Mark.
guiding document, but we do have to vote to change it if there's anything in there that we do wanna change.
Oh, speaking of budget, so in the governing docs, we have to provide food at our next meeting. I don't know if we wanna do that this summer and provide food, but if we do, we need to have money in the budget for that.
Yeah.
So,
Only if it's pizza.
right now, if we wanna have food in the first meeting, I would propose that we use some of the executive board, discretionary funds to fund the first meeting, because we hadn't voted on how to pay for it yet. Or we can just not have food and figure out how to pay for it during the first meeting.
So, couple of points. Since we are in the student union, we have to provide student union food.
Do we?
Yep.
Okay.
And it is expensive. and we get a 30% discount and blah, blah,
But it's
blah,
still-
and that might bring it in line.
I think it's $7 for the sandwiches. That's what Kevin told me.
So, it doesn't say we have to provide a full meal. Also throw that out there. So, but we need to come up with something, because it does say that.
Mhm.
And it also says it will pay for parking and travel and all sorts of things that the last council did not then put into the budget for us. So we get to figure that out, and that is a good point that for the, one of the questions is, you know, they passed this and then they didn't do it. Was there food at the last meeting that you went to? Because there wasn't that I went to, so how does that work? I don't know. However, it's in ours, we should follow it to the best of our ability or change it.
Is that something, I mean, I don't know the rationale behind it. I'm kind of curious what the general sentiment about these kind of new established rules, or why, or.
Partially it was because that reps don't show up because it's dinner time, and you know, it's instead of giving them money for stipends, let's offer them free food.
But yeah, then we decided to actually keep the stipend because some people can't show up because it's not because of dinner time they can't show up, because they have classes at that time, for example, or a lot of people we had a lot of alternative reps who showed up to meetings
Proxy.
well after we already established the schedule for the rest of the semester. They simply couldn't have attended those meetings because they had prior commitments, and we couldn't change the schedule for them because we have the schedule set up for the whole semester. And so because of that, there also was an issue with why are we taking away their stipends? They're not gonna be able to eat that food, they won't be at the meetings, yet they're still doing a lot of work outside the meetings, they're still representing students. And so then we ended up having the food and the stipends, and we didn't talk about how the food was gonna be paid for, so I don't know.
All right, let me chime in. So they spent half their time talking about what they were going to pay themselves.
Yeah.
And people were sick of it, including me. I only left one meeting, and it was because I could not sit through a third meeting with an hour and a half talking about what they were going to pay themselves and nothing else. So some of the reps proposed, get rid of the stipends. Just stop. We can't keep talking about it, and it's not clear on how much would be reduced and when it would be reduced and what has more weight and who makes that decision and when that decision is made. So to end the madness, it was proposed, get rid of it.
And then have these other things.
And then it was like, but people shouldn't then pay if they have to pay for parking, and well, there should be some, like, we could provide food, that way, if you come to the meeting, you would get this, you know, benefit, but if you don't, then
Okay.
that's that. So it was supposed to be one or increase their stipends. The last council voted to increase their stipends, provide food, transportation, parking, and then didn't address it in their budget. So
Yeah.
the meeting is recorded. You'd have to listen to the full semester to hear them talk about how much they're going to pay themselves. But it's all documented for your
Okay.
listening pleasure.
I mean,
So
it
just-
wasn't proposed. It wasn't proposed of one or the other. It was just proposed as we're going to provide food, and then it was a separate meeting where we discussed money.
We spent how
Because
So
we
I-
talked about it
Yeah.
every
I
meeting.
feel like then, I think discretionary budget might be the good place to take it out of for the next meeting, since we're following that. Is this something that one of the items that we should try and address before the fall, so that that idea of if, you know, the things that are in the governing docs that we really want to kind of take care of right away, is that one of them?
Yeah, we never actually did it yet, ever, so, I mean, if you wanted to just take it out, you could
Well,
do that.
Personally,
Well,
I
we'd
think-
still have to get it voted on, and
Yeah.
we'd still have to buy food in that meeting for it to be voted on.
Well, personally, I think that it's a good idea to have food, but if we can figure out how to get money from the budget, we have been allocated, thanks to me mostly, $5,000 for GC budget, discretionary budget, and I think that we can allocate a lot of that if we wanted to. I mean, we just have to make the decision. It looks like we're gonna have, well, I wouldn't say let's use the money that we had rolled over onto this, but we should have some money rolled over, to
It's really-
to the next budget.
Well, I mean, I think we should wait to see what the actual budget,
Yeah.
how much we have
'Cause-
in our budget at the moment. Just one second.
Yeah.
So we should see how much we have in our budget at the moment. I think it would be fine to cover food for whatever the next meeting is. But I think we should address either figuring out where in the budget it fits for next year or take it out for the time being. And if that's something that we want to incorporate when we can apply it to the budget and actually get funding for that specifically, then I think that that would be fine. But I think anybody else thoughts on?
Just one little comment, there might be, I mean, I just overheard a rumor, like the last year's treasurer was talking about it, so like, there might be there also might be, we might not have enough money in general. Like,
Right,
there
well,
might,
and
there might be a
that's
deficit,
why-
there might be a deficit,
That's why
yeah.
I'm saying contingent upon what we
Yeah,
find out
yeah,
with our
yeah.
budget at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, so,
Okay, so do we want to provide meals for everyone? Do we want to provide like snack foods and people can go through and get
I feel like finger foods
that
is
kind
the
of stuff?
best way to go.
yeah, finger.
I think that should be good. That should be good.
If we have to buy food from the student union, I'm pretty sure the cheapest option is sandwiches, even if you're talking about finger food.
Okay, let's
Right,
figure
but
out
that's kind of what I would consider.
Yeah.
what, because you can bring food in. You just can't have like Subway
Come and
come
cater.
cater. But if you can bring food,
So I
then
can
maybe
go
we
pick
could go
up
to
pizza.
Safeway,
Costco,
Yeah,
grab something
and
and bring
get-
it.
some vegetable trays and cookie
Mhm.
trays and cheese or whatever and do that. So I will work with you on
Mhm.
figuring out what the rules are, and then we will provide a
Some level of food.
reasonably priced option
We need
for
to-
that general council meeting, and then we will address this, because this could be a big problem for us if we have to do this as well.
I've noticed when all the budget on like this.
I think the interesting thing is if we
Mhm.
don't have money, because technically our new budget doesn't start until July 1st, because that's when the new fiscal year starts.
I think we should
So we
just-
need to.
Again, a lot of this,
We
we
need to
have to wait
address-
till we hear, so I mean, I don't feel like we can address it until we know.
That's exactly what I'm saying right now.
Yeah.
I'm saying that we need to wait until we figure out the money, where we can pull the money from. It's
Yeah.
not a lot of money. We have 19. There's 19 of us total, somewhere around there. Probably about half of us will show up. Hopefully, 2/3 of us will show up.
Hopefully, so we can
Um,
actually do something.
So, because I
Let's
know
hope
a
we have
lot
quorum.
of people are going to be out of town. So, and
Okay,
$7.
so along with the budget, when I have that information, I'll also find out what the requirements are if we can bring in stuff versus cater, whatever. So I will provide that information along with the budget so we can figure out what we're gonna do. And anybody else have an announcement?
Well, I think that's the thing. Do we have to vote on that, like to use discretionary funds, assuming we do have it, or?
Oh, here in
Because
the
I don't
executive
know if we
meeting?
have to vote on that, do we?
Yeah, if we wanna use EB discretionary funds, EB has to vote on it. So yeah, I guess if somebody wants to make a motion to do that,
Well, okay. I
and
guess-
then we can consider if we, but this is, I don't
Make it a
know, because this
contingent
isn't,
motion?
this isn't our money. I
Well,
mean, we
I
can't
mean,
spend,
we can say we prove it if contingent on the fact that we do have any money.
That's what I was wondering.
Because
Okay,
because otherwise
but
we cannot go
I
and
think some of
spend
the
money.
stuff, and I would have to check
Right.
on this, I think it says anything that comes back from the budget goes to general council's approval. So I think they would have to approve it if we're spending any rollover money. And I don't think we can spend money from July that would be in the,
I'm
EB
saying
discretionary.
spend
So,
the
saying
discretionary funds
it's-
that they had, if they had any left over.
who, the
The
executive board?
executive board.
Well, okay, if that would work, if they
Right.
did,
If
and
they
I have
had
no
any
idea.
left over, I
Okay.
don't know if they do, but if they had any left over, let's see if we can
Utilize that.
spend some of that on the meeting. If we don't, then I don't see how we can provide food.
Okay.
If you guys
Right.
prefer, someone makes them.
Maybe-
So I guess I have to move that we see if we have any money and spend it on the food.
I second that.
You have to make the motion clear, so,
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah.
so I
Sorry.
move to see if we have any executive board discretionary funds left over so that we can spend it on, food at the GC meeting.
Dis-
Discretionary funds?